Hello and welcome on Watches TV, and it's this time of the year for our kind of yearly summary of what happened in 2025 with Olivier Müller of Luxconsult, and because we're going to talk about the Morgan Stanley report, the 9th edition of this report, and it's a report that is widely looked after by the industry as a whole, but also from other people because it's intended for, financial institutions and investors. There's been a little bit of a few controversy about some of the numbers within this report. Let's put it that way. So I think it's important that we come back on the methodology because, numbers are quite scarce in this industry. Not that many people like to appreciate to talk about them. We have listed companies, we have private-owned companies, but nonetheless, one of the key denominator is that numbers are pretty hard to fetch. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain a few things which we have talked about before, but we lay totally, it's an open book. We have the methodology being explained within the report. Mm-hmm. It's on page 23 this year, yeah. And basically what we decided to do when we started with the first report, which was 2018 based on the 2017 figures, we decided that we needed to compare very different brands in terms of structure of distribution, retail, etc., that we needed to compare them on a comparable basis, apple with apples, peers with peers, and hence we decided to calculate the market shares of each brand on a retail value basis. Mm-hmm. To do that, we need to do a certain number of estimates. We have never said that it's a scientific report and that we have access to all the figures within the Swiss watch industry. That's not the case, and we have never alluded to the fact that we would have access to everyone. But on the other hand, we do have access to quite some mm-hmm. numbers, interesting figures. Sometimes, of course, those figures are contradicting what people say in the media, etc., and that's why probably it's a little bit disturbing for some people, especially these days, trying to take away the legitimacy of our work. So basically what we do estimate is, of course, the sales, turnover, the units sold by the brand, the margin given to the distribution, the percentage of integration at the wholesale level and retail level, because that makes a lot of difference. Always give the same examples. If you take Richard Mille, 100% of Richard Mille's turnover is being done direct to consumer. It's 42 point of sales worldwide, selling 100% of Richard Mille's watches. Hence, the turnover is not comparable with a brand. Let's take Rolex, the number one dominant. Rolex until 2 years ago was 100% almost, because they had one boutique in Geneva, but almost 100% was going to third-party retailers. Mm-hmm. And that changed a little bit with the integration of Bucherer, which is now retailing, owned by Rolex and retailing Rolex and other brands, of mm-hmm. course. And we had to integrate that also in the sales of Rolex. And then with all those figures, all those estimates, we then converted into retail values, which allow us to calculate the overall value of the market and to calculate each brand's market share. Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the big figure, the one that is, let's say, undisputed regarding just watch exports coming out of Switzerland. So there's been a slight contraction in 25 compared to 24, but nonetheless, if you compare it to 2019, we're still above that. It's people are maybe sometimes playing the doomsday book theory, but at the same time, the industry has still had a growth over the last let's say 6-7 years. So slight decline. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was a very small decline of minus 1.7%
In value.
in value. On average, that's a very important thing. I always emphasize, and sorry for repeating myself year after year, but the thing is, if you have the four biggest brands in terms of market shares, for instance, and you come up with those four, which are Rolex, Cartier, Audemars Piguet, and Omega in terms of market shares. I'm going to explain why Omega is fifth, because they are fifth in terms of sales, but fourth in terms of market shares. And when those four brands already capture 55% of the whole market, you can understand that if most of them or all of them, unfortunately it's not the case for Omega, but if most of them overperform the market, then of course the average is not so much relevant anymore. We could take also the example of the big four, which is Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Richard Mille, and those come up to almost now half of the market. It's 49% captured by the big four. So you instantly understand that if those brands perform well, then the overall market doesn't look that bad. And then if you dive into the details, you see that there are many brands which were strongly in the high minus single digits year on year, and then you have even people being in the double digit minus, and some of those are not happy because we are writing it. Some don't have a problem because they stick to the truth and they have no problem exchanging information.
But what's interesting indeed is that those four, their market share has grown. I mean, and so we have four players that are really, capturing basically not the entire market, but above 50%. From year to year, they consolidate this.
Absolutely, it's a virtuous dynamic, as I always call it, because it's very simple. The bigger you get, the more money you are making, because you can do economies of scale. You're becoming more efficient. Your brand awareness increases over proportionally, etc. Especially on markets like the US, which was the one market post-COVID which grew and partially compensated for the downturn of China. So if you're strong, you make a lot of money. Your margin keep increasing because you earn more money. You can reinvest more money. You get more brand awareness, etc., etc. We are not talking about the niche of high-end or not, or middle range, etc. But we are talking about the main market. That's why those brands are performing so well. And in the first place, Rolex is now up with 1/3 of the overall Swiss-made watches. So that's quite an impressive achievement.
Absolutely. I saw that indeed in the report. You state that they were at 26% just a few years back, and now they're indeed at 33%. So just again consolidating, getting more power, and it, as you mentioned, it's really creating a virtuous circle basically.
Yeah.
But then there can be a kind of a downward spiral for other brands, and we'll get back on this in a short while. Something also that you highlight quite clearly in the report is this notion of premiumization. I hate to say this word, it's a complicated one to say, but you see what I mean. And something that I find it quite interesting is that watches above 50,000 Swiss franc, is that retail value? Retail value, okay. Account for 37% of the total value, but only representing 1.4% of volumes.
That's absolutely, and that shows how dangerous the whole evolution is. And that is about the only point which I would agree with someone I'm not going to name. It's like Harry Potter here. We are not going to name him. It's about the only point I agree with is the extraordinary risk that we're taking as an industry to rely only on the high end, because this shows exactly what is happening year after year. The volumes are declining. Last year we lost again 700,000 units. We are down to 14.6 million watches exported from Switzerland, which amounts more or less to the sales. I'm not going too much into the detail how we come up with all those statistics, but basically it shows how thin the fundamentals are becoming. And just another number, Swatch Group alone with its 16 brands accounts for about 60% of the whole volume.
Yes.
That's impressive. And if you add up the 1.2 million watches sold by Rolex, you are up to 70% almost of the whole cake of Swiss-made watches. So it shows how thin the fundamental is, and how the volumes are reducing because we premiumize. We're selling less of more expensive watches, etc. That's dragging away the volumes for the industrial basis, and that's increasingly becoming a problem.
But it's important to highlight, indeed. I mean, the Swatch Group is an industrial group. It was built like that. And I don't think people realize that, indeed, they produce 60% of the entire Swiss production.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's massive. It's really a huge player regarding the volume, and the fact of maintaining those industrial capabilities, I mean, requires those type of volumes. Regarding still volumes, I saw another interesting figure there regarding quartz and mechanical watches, because indeed volumes are going down, so since 2011, volumes have halved, but in 2024, you have 9.4 million watches, quartz watches that were sold, but 5.2 mechanical watches. And a few years back, it was like 5.5 mechanical watches. So the trend regarding mechanical watches is much less going downwards compared to quartz watches.
Absolutely.
So is there a future for Swiss quartz watches?
Indeed. I'm very much convinced of that. First of all, because we introduced solar quartz technology, which is very interesting in terms of energy consumption. It's sustainable. There are more and more brands coming to that. Again, Swatch Group, there is the one, or no, not one. They are the leaders in this technology. They have used that for quite some times. For instance, at Tissot for the T-Touch Solar Connected, which has an extraordinary power reserve. On the rest, I'm not going to comment for obvious reasons. But that's an extremely interesting technology. Cartier did the first launch, which was not so successful, but that was not so much because of the product. It was more an issue of the technology itself. Now they are following up with a better product, and you can see with Tank at Cartier that you have that solar technology. LVMH is coming up with that, even at Tiffany. So that's just to say that quartz doesn't equal cheap. That was the problem of this product, with very few exceptions in the watch industry, with people managing the image of that product. For instance, Grand Seiko, who always remain with either quartz or a mix of quartz and mechanical, which is a very interesting technology as well. So quartz doesn't equal cheap. Quartz is interesting. And it's coming more and more. At Longines, it's ultra precision quartz, etc. So there is a market there, not only in the middle range, also in the premium line. You have jewelry watches for women where you use quartz because it's small, it's light, etc. and it's very cheap, and it's very easy to exchange because it doesn't cost anything. So that takes away a little bit of the sustainable element, but that's another story. So quartz is not doomed, but the people selling quartz need to make their clients understand that it's a different type of watchmaking. I am an old guy in love with, even manual winding, which is even of another age. But I see all the advantages of quartz, even more so if we use the solar technology, which is abundant. So there is a future.
So the efforts in research and development within that field of watchmaking is still there.
Absolutely.
And there is still a room for further improvements, and but then with the proper communication, then people can understand what's behind a bit more. Okay, well, it's interesting. So let's talk about now some of the performance of brands and groups. And we see something that is quite unusual compared to other type of the branches of the industry, the luxury industry, is that privately held brands perform better than the public listed one. And that's kind of an oddity, like as I mentioned, compared to other luxury sectors. Is there an explanation for this?
Yes, there is. And before I start explaining why there is difference, there is one exception to this, which is Cartier. And I shall make a disclaimer because there are people implying that I have conflicts of interest. Yes, I do. So I love some people, other people I love less. I love some brands, other brands I dislike a little bit, but I'm not talking about them. So I'm not paid by Richemont, I'm not paid by Cartier, I've never been. Okay, disclaimer. But those are really extraordinary brands, and now I forgot your question. Sorry, because
I was saying that privately owned brands compared to listed companies. Yeah, there we are.
I'm getting old, Yes. There is a very, very basic explanation for that. Is the time frame that you are taking in account. When you are the owner of Patek Philippe, when you are the owner of Audemars Piguet, etc., you are not thinking in terms of quarters because you are not a listed company. You don't have people like us with Morgan Stanley asking why you underperformed last quarter or last year, etc., because you don't have to give accounts to anyone. And I would strongly advise with people who are frustrated with the financial community to take, if they are listed, to take their companies private. That would be a good first step to regain their autonomy and their freedom to do whatever they deem to be good for their company. So basically, it's the time frame. They look long term. They reinvest in their company. The level of debt is very low, if at all. Most of them, let's take a company like Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet, zero debts, at least to my best knowledge. Everything is paid for, every single machine, every building, etc. That gives you, how shall I say, let's take a very specific example. You launch the Cubitus at Patek Philippe. Some people dislike it, others love it, some speculate on it. But at the end of the day, Patek Philippe does what it deems to be the best for the brand, for the company. When they discontinued the 5711 in stainless steel of the Nautilus line, they just did it, and then it was gone. Imagine someone at LVMH or Richemont or Swatch Group telling his boss that he is going to discontinue.
Yeah, not possible.
The bestseller of the brand. I don't think you survive the next minute as the CEO of that brand. So that explains a lot. That explains why they are so overperforming, because they plan long term. I'm not saying none of the listed companies have a little bit of that thinking, but it's long term. Hermes, I mean, Hermes took almost now 2 decades to reshuffle the product offering at watches. They have recentered, refocused on more mechanical, more traditional watches, etc., etc. Hermes has done a tremendous job. They took, as I said, 2 decades. They are listed. That's the difference. But there is a very important anchor shareholder, which is the family, and the family, as they always say, they're here for eternity. And sorry, just one last point, and one thing which I shall add is that in watches the product cycles are very much longer than in most, or I would say almost any other, maybe comparable with cars. Cars are also a very long product cycles because you need a lot of time to develop new engines, etc., etc. You see now the transition of technology from conventional engines to electric, etc., to EVs. It takes a lot of time. In the watch industry, we need a lot of time to develop new products, and that explains why privately held companies also perform better, because they take the time. You know, the Cubitus, I'm back at the Cubitus, was the first new product launch or new product family since a quarter of a century at Patek Philippe. Think of this. This is quite remarkable. And kudos to Patek. Patek is looking for decades, for generations.
For generations, let's use that word, that suits them well. So yeah, interesting indeed, probably in the other luxury industry, the sectors, I mean, you're a watch industry expert, but indeed, in the other industries, probably, I mean, the life cycle is much shorter, and then it's a completely different mind game, and then perhaps having higher yields and performance is something that can be managed a little bit differently than in the watchmaking industry. And coming back to Hermes, I mean, they've accepted to reduce significantly the volumes that they were.
Tremendous. They were selling 20 years ago. They were selling more or less between 260, 280,000 watches. They are down to not even 70,000, even a little bit below. So it's a total refocusing on what this product category is about. That's the important thing to understand, that 20 years ago you would sell a watch at Hermes as an accessory to create traffic in the boutiques for the core business. And today Hermes is selling a watch as its own product category, and they want to be seen as serious people doing serious watches, etc. Another interesting thing, but we are not going to drive too much, but another interesting thing is how they do smartwatches. Instead of doing the mistake that other brands have done, other groups have done, trying to compete with people they will never be able to compete with, they have done a collab with Apple, and those Apple by Hermes watches sell very well, and at a substantial premium compared with the normal Apple watches.
Interesting indeed. Before again diving a little bit deeper with the again performance of brands and groups, let's stay on the macro level a little bit, and let's talk market dynamics in terms of geographies, and what can we say about 2025 regarding these the different dynamics?
Yep. First of all, post-COVID, we have seen a strong shift towards the US. The US has been a very fast-growing market. One reason, of course, is the overall economic situation with all the wealth that has been created during COVID. There were many liquidities injected into the economy, which by collateral creates buying power. The category, the product category of watches within the luxury industry in the US was substantially lower at about 11% of the whole spending of the luxury goods spending in the US, which is substantially lower than the worldwide average, which is estimated by Bain to be at about 15% of the personal luxury goods, where you have leather goods, etc. So that gave already an idea of the potential that this market has. But it's a very demanding market. Why? Because it's huge. You need to create brand awareness that costs money, and some brands were very weak until COVID, because COVID was really a game changer for anything. So post-COVID, many brands understood that they needed to diversify away from China, and China, unlike what some people see, which I don't see anywhere, and I'm going to explain why, because there is a good reason that the luxury consumption is down in China. It didn't restart post-COVID, where it left 2019. And the bad news is, I dare to forecast that it's not going to be the case anytime soon. It doesn't mean that the Chinese market disappeared, and now it seems that finally it bottomed, and that finally we're seeing a little bit an improving situation. The not so positive news is when I see the number one in the world of luxury good called LVMH selling its duty-free business in China. This for me is a very strong signal that that market is not seen, and I mean as being potentially growing again. And I mean, it's LVMH. You like or dislike them, you like the brands, you dislike the brands, but overall it's still a very well performing group, etc. So when they go out of China, it's probably because they think that it's done in terms of growth. Again, I'm not saying it's disappearing. I think that the recent improving numbers, at least in the export figures, in China, were mostly due to the recapturing of offshore spending by the Chinese, because as you may know, they had quite some issues between the Japanese and the Chinese, and the Chinese government now is not so much anymore in favor that the Chinese tourists go over there and spend their money because the yen was low, etc., etc. So that was more of a reshoring. And last but not least, 70%, that's an estimate by Morgan Stanley, which most of the financial institutions agree with. 70% of the wealth of the private Chinese is being invested in real estate. And real estate, the prices are still plummeting. My colleagues at Morgan Stanley just issued a report showing that the prices are still going down. So if you lose value on your main investment, might be an apartment, it might be 2 apartments, whatever, I don't think you're going to spend the same amount of your discretionary budget on luxury goods if your main investment is losing value. It's a very simple, basic reason.
Yeah, and regarding China, I mean, it's really the entire luxury industry that has been hit. Probably the watchmaking, maybe the hardest, but I mean, it's overall luxury spendings have gone down in all different sectors. Regarding Europe and other, let's remain maybe in Asia. Is there anything that can be said about the rest of Asia?
Sure. The markets, there are some good news with South Korea. There are some mixed news about Japan. Japan took a lot of advantage of their low currency. The yen took a hit, especially compared to the Swiss franc. a lot of tourism. Japan became the destination to go to because it's an extraordinary country with a very, very unique culture. Yes, you have here and there, you have positive news, but I'm always a little bit, inclined to say that you can't just say because one market is doing well that everyone is doing well there. You have to look at each brand, how they perform on the different markets. Asia overall is okay. China won't be the growth market anymore what it used to be, at least for the, I would say at least midterm, the next probably few years. Maybe I'm proven wrong in a decade, but at least it looks like. There is no other China coming behind China. India is growing, and there are very positive news in terms of luxury retail infrastructure, all the money that's being invested in luxury shopping malls, in monobrand boutiques, etc. The import duties are being reduced gradually due to a bilateral agreement with Switzerland. This is all good news, but in terms of absolute size, it's still far, far, far away from what China has been, and the growth numbers are not the ones we had seen in China for 2 decades.
But it still represents an opportunity.
It's still an opportunity. It would be silly not to take advantage of it. Now I'm going to say something nice about the group in Bienne, but that was when Mr. Hayek Sr., who was a visionary, and the people around him decided to invest massively in India. They were the first group to go there, invest money, and still as of today, Rado is the #1 brand in India, and they are doing well there. It's still it's a very complicated market because everything is different, which makes business probably interesting. Then we have the Middle East, which currently undergoes a very, very difficult situation. But if we look at the recent development of the economy, very interesting. Saudi Arabia is really growing, modernizing. I'm quite putting some. I would bet on Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, to a lesser extent, of course, much smaller, etc. For obvious reasons, but Saudi Arabia is probably one of the growth markets. And then, of course, you have the United Arab Emirates with Dubai in the first place, because it's an international melting pot where you have the whole world meeting from all the places. A lot of Russians, which officially can't buy anymore in Russia, so they buy wherever they are, and mainly in Dubai. So those markets are also very interesting. In Europe, it's very diverse, and of course very much linked to tourism. We don't have to be fooled by some figures that we see, because it's mostly concentrated in France. It's Paris and a little bit of Côte d'Azur, then Monaco. Italy, it's Milano, which is booming for obvious reasons, because it became a tax haven for rich people, and then you have Rome, etc. So it's mostly linked to tourism, but not only. COVID had also this positive outcome, that all of a sudden the brands realized that in front of their door they had a lot of consumer, a lot of potential clients whom they probably didn't look after too much when the Chinese were coming massively to Europe and buying everything. We all have these images of huge, I was going to say this kind of Italian word, but the big coaches coming in with a lot of Chinese tourists buying, and that drifted away the attention of the brands, not looking towards the local consumers. And now all the brands have understood that locally there is buying power.
Yeah.
Switzerland, of course, it's an island of wellness. So I always tell people to be very careful not to draw conclusions because they live in Geneva or Zurich and think that the rest of the world is spending as much money on watches. It's very, but no, overall, there are markets which had not disappeared again, but which were not very much looked after by some brands, by many brands, and that changed. COVID changed that. And yeah, then we have the UK, which is a very special market because basically you have London and then you have a little bit of Manchester only because there are football players buying very expensive watches. I mean, it's true. And then, yeah, you have London, which is again an attraction. Many international people flying through or living there partially, doing business, so it's an important market. The US we have talked about. South America, it's difficult. We can talk about Central America. There is Mexico. Mexico is an extraordinary market because it's very dynamic. There are friends from Tiempo de Relojes who organize every year now twice their exhibition called CIAR. That creates a lot of interest. The watch community comes together. It's nice because there is sunshine. That is maybe also an important point we should talk about quickly. It's all those gatherings with Dubai Watch Week, etc.
I mean, last year was quite a statement by the Dubai Watch Week. You know, it was just like, okay, we're the center of the watchmaking universe, almost. I mean, it was kind of the message that they wanted to have come through, but it was impressive. It was really, really nice indeed, and cozy because it was nice weather and it's easy to go in and out and so forth.
True.
But I mean, we live in a world today with so many geopolitical uncertainties. It's quite an adverse environment. But something that we didn't mention, which has a direct impact, is obviously the strength of the Swiss franc.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. In the adverse, the headwinds that we are facing, we have the gold prices going through the roof. That's incredible. I mean, when you have a raw material picking up 50% in value in 12 months, that's becoming an issue for especially for the high end, of course. And then we have a very strong Swiss franc. And when you produce in Switzerland, or at least mainly in Switzerland, that's another vast topic. Then, of course, you're impacted because you sell in yen, you sell in dollars, you sell in pounds, etc., etc. The Swiss franc, just to take an example, on average, 2025 took 12% against the renminbi, the Chinese currency. That is impacting you massively, especially if you're overexposed to that market, as some Swatch Group brands still are, unfortunately, and that's why they are over proportionally impacted, and that's why they're always complaining. They are rightfully complaining, but it's impacting anyone, especially a company like Rolex, which is one of the very, very few major Swiss watch brand producing everything in Switzerland. I like to emphasize
to be noted,
on that.
Absolutely.
Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, etc., etc. And there are a few other ones which would deserve to be mentioned here. I can't mention all of them, but of course that's a very strong headwinds. That's the cyclical negative impacts. Then you have the geopolitics, which are bringing uncertainty. One thing which economy doesn't like is uncertainty. If it goes up and down, you can plan to decrease or reinvest on the contrary. But if you don't know where the journey goes, and then we had someone in the White House turning around the buttons, once here, once there, We didn't know where the journey was going. Finally, it seems that we came to more or less, let's put it that way, a little bit a more stable situation. Kudos to the watch CEOs who went there. I don't have any problem that he received a very nice clock. By the way, it's not Mr. Trump who received it, it's the United States of America. I don't see any problem. It's about business, it's about jobs in Switzerland, it's about companies, it's about the taxes that those companies pay.
But then if this is offset by a weak dollar, then it kind of...
The problem, of course. The problem is that we are seeing the Swiss economy is always seen as an anchor of being stable. I mean, with what's just happening the last few days, people are brutally reminded that places who seem to be, some places are called the new Switzerland of the Middle East. Yes, maybe, and maybe they are probably even better than we are at many things, but we are in a stable place, at least for the time being. Don't know what the future will be made of. So yes, that's a challenge. The currencies being in a strong economy, people speculating on your currency. I think, unlike someone else, I think the Swiss National Bank does an outstanding job. They are not here to spend billions to fight against speculation. Overall, it's working. It's very hard for entrepreneurs, especially producing in Switzerland, in any segment of the economy.
Yeah. No, for sure. But we'll see how that will evolve this year. But there's a high probability that the Swiss franc will remain quite strong and will have an impact on some of these export figures. Let's talk now about some of the brands themselves, and let's jump in with the crown, with Rolex. Indeed, the market share has risen, like we mentioned a little bit before. But something that I want to talk to you about is about the success, basically, of their CPO program. And maybe share your thoughts about that.
It's probably one of the best ideas they ever had. They weren't first. We always have to come back to who launched that first. And those were niche brands like Global 4C and MB&F. Because Max Büsser is one of the people giving good thoughts to how business is being done.
A smart guy, that's for sure.
And he understood that if you want people to buy you new watches, they need to be reassured that the day they buy, the next day it's not minus 30%, it's still keeping some value. The value retention is very important for any brand. And Rolex doing that CPO, of course, it's a different level. It needed, a whole reshuffling of their supply chain because it's not done overnight. To have all those watches authenticated, etc. So that's very important.
But Rolex, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please.
Rolex watches always had this kind of high retained value of their products. So why did they need to go the extra mile with the program?
It's a good question. Because they want to eradicate one of their biggest threats, which is the gray market and fake watches, black market. When you're so successful as Rolex is, of course, you are you are the most copied watch brand in the world. And that's very, very bad for the brand equity and many other reasons. So the fact that you're certifying on the secondary market brings trust. Trust is the basis of any business in the world. You sell candies, you sell watches, you sell oil. If there is no trust, there is no business. And Rolex came in and and brought that trust. And that's why that's very interesting to see my friends at watcharts.com. They're always tracking those numbers, and they are still saying that the premium being paid from CPO compared with non-CPO Rolex is still between 20 and 30%, depending on the reference, on the SKU of the watch, and depending, of course, on other characteristics of the watch, etc., etc. But overall, 20 to 30%.
That's huge.
It's huge. And why is that? Because you pay a premium, you pay an insurance premium. Yeah. You know that your watch has been authenticated by Rolex / the authorized Rolex retailer. So you know your watch has been checked, you know your watch bears an additional 2 years guarantee, etc., which is worth money. And you have the papers, you have the box, the full set, as they say out there, and that brings trust. And that's why it's so important for Rolex. And then you start pushing out the people doing the monkey business around watches with more or less real watches. The thing which surprised me is how quickly they integrated even vintage in the CPO, because in the first place it was meant to be limited to more recent watches, and they open up quite fast. And it's a substantial business at Watches of Switzerland, one of the biggest retail networks in the world.
That also,
They said that it became the second source of income, the Rolex CPO behind Rolex. That's for obvious reasons. When you do 60% of your sales at Watches of Switzerland with Rolex, when you do the CPO, probably it's also a substantial part of the business, but that's just logics. Yes, I think this is the CEO of Rolex said at the Dubai Watch Week, he said that was the missing last mile with the customer. And by the way, you keep in touch with that customer.
Of course,
You reassure him that his watch will bear value for the eternity again. He can go to a trusted retailer. He knows he buys a real watch. He can resell it. He can measure the value. The whole digitalization of the market brought a lot of transparency. You can check the numbers. I talked about watch charts. There are other websites out there which are very good. You can go on Chrono24. I would just say, people ask me very often, can I buy a second-hand watch, whatever brand? And I say yes, but buy it only from a trusted dealer, someone you know, someone giving you some guarantees, and obviously the best guarantee is the one given by the brand, in this case, Rolex.
So the numbers of points of sales for Rolex has decreased. Apparently they're going to continue decreasing and focusing a little bit more on big flagship stores, but then also, but you mentioned that 26% of Rolex retailers now have also this CPO dimension to their business.
Yes. Yes, because it's complementary. Yes. There was always this fear that selling a second-hand watch takes business away from selling new watches. But you just have to understand that if you are communicating on the fact that it's a sustainable product which would last, again, forever, or at least for a few generations, then you have to make sure that the whole ecosystem makes sense. Yeah. Now, let's be blunt. A few years ago, no watch brand would care about what would happen with the second, third, and fourth life of their watches. Let's face it. They would just say, it's none of our business.
Money made. Okay.
We make watches. We advertise. We do this. We do that. But once it's sold, it's sold. Yeah. And now they have understood that it's an ecosystem where that watch will be resold, that customer might buy a new watch or a second-hand watch. So it's an important, logical step of creating that ecosystem, and the Rolex authorized retailers have that additional income source. By the way, because as we all know, there are some, at least I think so, there are quite a few Rolexes which you can resell with a substantial premium. They have just discontinued the Pepsi, and of course the prices are going through the roof. Very good game, by the way, to increase the brand equity, because people start chasing. It's smartly done.
Still talking about Rolex, I mean, last year they introduced kind of a game changer, basically, with the Land Dweller. New collection, that's the first thing, but also with significant mechanical improvements, and which requires quite a lot of technology, showcasing again that there's a lot of efforts put in R&D there. And you know that, I mean, once they commercialize something, it's not because we think it's going to be okay. I mean, they really test-proofed it significantly, and that Dynapulse escapement is really quite something. I mean, I think it's something that is not yet perceived precisely where it should be. I mean, it's quite a game changer, I think, this part.
Totally agree. We're on the same page. I came to Watches and Wonders a few days before they did, that teasing, and people who understand a little bit about something about mechanical movements understood that this was going to be a major product launch. Kudos to them. I was amazed. It was the most important product launch. Whatever people think, say, right. They like or dislike the watch. I'm not here to say that the watch is good looking or not. I'm just here to say that it's a new way of making mechanical watches. Very interesting, major improvements. It's not out of respect, guys, the artisan watchmakers making very nice things, etc. But when we talk about Rolex, Omega, Grand Seiko, and a few others, because Audemars Piguet, they did once upon a time the Robin escapement, which is more or less of the same line or same thought. I mean, this is a major achievement, and when you are Rolex, you need to make sure that you are precise, anti-magnetic, that you can produce hundreds of thousands of that caliber. I mean, this is a major industrial achievement. Besides being an extraordinary watch, the Dynapulse movement is just... When you understand a little bit about mechanics and that you're a little bit passionate like I am, you must say, wow, kudos to those guys. The last time I was bluffed like this was probably in '99 when Omega launched the coaxial. I have a fun fact about the Dynapulse, because I said to the Rolex people, oh, it's also inspired by the natural escapement of Breguet. And they looked at me and said, no, not at all, nothing to do. They are right, technically speaking, of course, they are right. In terms of mechanical philosophy of the concept of that escapement, it's a thing I think we should pay tribute to a guy called Abraham Louis Breguet. And his natural escapement, but anyways, that doesn't change a single thing. It's so extraordinary in terms of precision, of resistance to magnetic fields. It's a totally anti-magnetic escapement oscillator. I mean, it's just perfect. Yeah. It's what Rolex is about: perfection. Yes. Manufacturing excellence. I mean, this is and again, I'm going to make a disclaimer. I don't work for Rolex. I'm not being paid by Rolex, never been, unfortunately. I would like to, but the product just deserves kudos. What else can we say?
I mean, it's an incredible demonstration of high-tech manufacturing capabilities. I mean, we're talking hardcore science basically behind this.
Absolutely. And the smart thing, that's where you understand the product philosophy of Rolex, is, for instance, instead of reinventing another gear train, they took out the gear train that they were using for the Chronergy caliber family, because it's working so well, and they took that for the new and they put it together with the Dynapulse escapement because they just work out perfectly together. It was a game changer. There were people at Watches and Wonders who really questioned me about, do you think that this is making a difference? I said yes. A major difference. It's very reassuring to see that the over-dominant player in the Swiss watch industry still invests so much money in the R&D. You know, there are always people telling me it's low tech, no investment, no research, etc. I say, ooh, you have to be careful because there is a lot of money being invested in this.
Well, I mean, the profile of guys working on such projects has maybe evolved a little bit from the traditional watchmaker to some crazy scientists and engineers, that's for sure. But nonetheless, it shows that indeed by pushing limits, continuing to invest in R&D is a way of maintaining yourself a little bit different from the other and being always one step ahead. And I think this is overall within the Swiss watchmaking industry. I mean, this is something that needs to be taken care of naturally, because I mean, we can't just rely on something that has been working for the last 50 or 100 years or whatsoever. I mean, we still have to create value, whether it's within the fact that watches are more precise, the longevity of the watches,
the durability,
the fact that, and you see that in a certain way by the fact that most brands have increased the number of years of warranty because basically they trust more their product. Sometimes they do this as a communication scheme and things like that, and then they're faced with a difficult situation where they have to take care of the watches for longer years than what they expected. But nonetheless, I think it's something that needs to be put forward.
One very quick historical backflash. In the mid of the 18th century, with Breguet, Leroy, Lépine, Robin, and a few others, you had the most prolific time period in mechanical watchmaking. It took a long time until we got back. It's not that nothing happens. I'm also always strongly against, those opinion makers, especially on YouTube and TikTok, telling that nothing happened for 250 years. That's bullshit.
There's been a constant evolution. Yeah.
There's been a constant evolution. There have been many interesting things done in the Swiss watch and overall, not only with the Swiss. Many people have innovated. There was the auto quartz invented in the 1990s, etc., etc. So the evolution goes, but the most prolific time was in that 18th century when the Breguets and again Leroy, Lépine, etc. Mostly French, not only the English guys. I forget to talk about all those extraordinary achievements by English watchmakers. And a Dutch guy in the first place.
Yeah, he was
also a little bit in the 16th century. So no, it's important that it's part of the DNA. It's very important. That's another takeaway from our work of the recent years, and that I'm more and more emphasizing on that. I think we are in a very prolific, a very positive era of watchmaking, very creative, a lot of colors, a lot of mechanical innovations at small and higher levels. Yeah. Not everyone is Rolex and can spend hundreds of millions, in manufacturing capacities. But overall, I think we are in a very good, very interesting period with many new product launches, etc. That's interesting.
Yeah. One last thing regarding Rolex is that they've kind of well communicated around this Rolex Quantum initiative also.
Yes.
Which is kind of definitely showcasing their will of pursuing this R&D dimension of their business. Can you tell us a little bit what are the goals with this?
This is very interesting because, as we all know, one of the reasons of the success of Rolex in the last few decades was that it quickly shifted away from quartz and restarted on mechanical. Overall, in 20 years of duration of the Oyster quartz, the quartz watch made by Rolex, they sold only around 115,000 watches. So that's why they carry such a high value retention, those Oyster quartz watches. They switched very quickly, but what no one knows, and I don't know, but I heard, through the grapevines, and I heard that they always kept that know-how in quartz watches. And the fact that they are doing this atomic time precision watches, they have set up a separate company which will be producing clocks, which allow for GPS guidance, etc. It's very important. We are in terms of precision at, of course, totally different levels what we will ever be able to achieve with a mechanical watch. But that is to highlight their knowledge with those technology, with quartz. Very interesting, because it's very much, again, in the DNA of that brand, with which Mr. Wilsdorf always wanted it to be, and they are becoming better and better.
What's interesting is that, I mean, I'm convinced also, like you just mentioned, that, I mean, those initiatives were still ongoing within Rolex, but they didn't talk about it.
Yes.
But now with this quantum initiative, at least, I mean, it's a way of them saying that, we're there, basically.
We are there, and basically we are the best. No, but it's true. It's very interesting. They are working with that institute in Neuchâtel, XEM, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see. It's also, again, it's a private company held by a foundation. They can decide that they invest millions of Swiss in R&D, which don't have a real impact on their P&L, not for short term and not for long term, but they do it to demonstrate their capacities. Yeah. And as Mr. Dufour, again, the CEO of Rolex, rightfully said recently, there are hundreds of people working in the R&D at Rolex, and there are people with PhD in physics, etc., etc. So it's not the watchmaker, more or less doing something which more or less gives time. We are in ultra precision. Yeah,
impressive indeed. So let's talk about some other brands now, okay?
Sure.
Just a little bit, but we'll remain with the big ones to start up with.
Sure.
So let's talk about AP. Last year celebrated its 150th anniversary, so it was a kind of important milestone, I guess. I mean, it's one of those dates, important dates that I understand that you can celebrate. They came with a lot of different limited editions celebrating this anniversary, which probably gave them quite a lot of momentum. Benefiting the turnover, so they don't disclose numbers either. But I mean, apparently their overall turnover increased by almost 10%, 9%, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Volumes have increased a little bit, but we're still within this 50,000 more or less production range. How do you see the business of AP and in the coming years, especially?
Challenging. Yeah. It's a very strong brand. Still has a lot of potential on the very long term. I agree with the former CEO and the actual CEO. They are both saying the same thing, that basically the brand still bears a lot of growth potential. The question will be, if...
In terms of growth, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, they doubled their turnover since 2019. I mean, that's
sure.
that's huge. I mean,
it's huge.
It's huge.
And potentially, I have no problem with the CEO saying, she didn't say it this way. I'm a little bit, interpreting, but the former CEO said it once. That the potential can be even double what they do today. So the 5 billion sales by Audemars Piguet is not just a dream. It's achievable, long term, but many things need to align. And those many things is to reduce the monoproduct image of the brand, which is related to Royal Oak only.
But it's a sexy watch.
It is.
I mean, I understand why people want to buy one, you know.
I do also, and I think there are a million of different ways of creating variations of the Royal Oak in terms of colors, materials, material treatment, movements in the first place. I mean, in the last decade, or in the last decade and a half, Audemars Piguet went up for, buying, or 20 years ago, buying movements at Jaeger-LeCoultre. They went to a real manufacturer. They were already producing at APRP, ex Renault Papy. They were producing already extraordinary movements, but for the main, for the volume for the bread and butter business, they were still relying a lot on outside parties. So the question will be, can they manage to diversify? They have launched the Code 1159. Is it that successful? To some extent, we estimate that it's contributing to about 12% of the overall sales, which is already quite substantial. People say, oh, only 12%. No, it's 12% of last year, 2.6 billion sales. So I think there would be quite a few watch brand CEOs out there happy to make only the sales of the Code 1159. Now, the people disliking AP are saying that it's more or less cross-selling because, if you want to buy that Royal Oak Jumbo, you need to first buy this, Anyways, we know all those monkey businesses out there, and there is certainly a bit of truth to it, certainly. It needs, to become probably a little bit more diversified. They launched just now the Neo Frame, interesting watch. I'm not here to say I like or dislike the watch. It's an interesting watch. It's totally in line with the brand's DNA and history. Is it going to be commercially successful? I doubt. Very much. But again, I would love to be proven wrong once more with all those very intelligent experts out there. But that's where the journey should go for Audemars Piguet. And one thing, let's not forget about one thing. The outgoing CEO, François-Henri Benamias, we say now his name, he has done a very interesting thing. He made a luxury brand out of Audemars Piguet rather than just a watch brand. It's a holistic experience with the AP houses, etc., the whole image. And the current CEO, Mrs. Resta, she's continuing that way. For the time being, she has lived on the product pipeline left from a predecessor for obvious reasons. That's not criticism.
No, it takes time.
Just takes time. We'll see what she comes up with. She seems to be very confident about the future. She just gave an interview where she's saying that the brand is aiming at grow again another 10% this year. Is it achievable? In terms of math, yes, through price increases, the volume will remain more or less stable. The only thing where I think they should be a little bit careful is with their verticalization. They have just inaugurated a new manufacturer, huge thing, more than 23,000 square meters in Le Brassus. They are already building the next one. And the obvious goal, of course, is to go. They are now a little bit above the 50,000. We estimated 53. It's somewhere around there. The goal is obviously to go to the 70,000, where there is, by coincidence, a brand called Patek Philippe.
Yes.
And they think there is a market there, and I would strongly agree with them that there is a market there for them.
But interestingly enough, I mean, they're one of the main brand that is there to defend, for instance, this world of the suppliers of the industry, and that you need to be supportive of your suppliers and so forth. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I mean, they've integrated quite a lot of capacity. So we'll see. And that, I guess, I mean, the only solution is by increasing the volumes of production. But coming probably indeed with new collections, and this Neo frame is probably just the beginning. I mean, because they had done reissues of former models and things like that, but there was always kind of limited edition, whereas this one is a new collection by itself, and they'll see if they'll be able to grow it and probably make it evolve a little bit. But then there could be other collections coming in the near future also.
The fun fact about this is, if you look at Audemars Piguet's history, which is now 151 this years, is that it was a brand which didn't have a clear design language for very, very long.
Absolutely.
Until 1972,
yes,
and the birth of the Royal Oak. And that became the hero product, and the brand became a mono product brand. That's very interesting now that they try to get out of this and trying to re-diversify, because if you take the history of that brand, it was once this, once that, a series of chronographs round, then square watches, etc. All nice watches per se, but no clear design language.
So this is a perfect transition to talk about the next brand and talk about Patek. You mentioned indeed a bit more than 70,000 watches produced, but something interesting about Patek, which I've already said quite a few times, is that they indeed have various product lines. There's not this one king product and then that which takes over the entire turnover of the company. It's one of the rare brands where they have multiple collections that are very different from one another, and it's quite remarkable that they're able to balance out more or less these collections. I mean, some are more successful than others for sure, but nonetheless they manage to keep it kind of, like I said, balanced, and it shows that it's kind of working.
The one thing about Patek Philippe which amazes me the most is that it's contradicting all the theories about brand endorsement. They have zero brand testimonial. They are doing zero sponsoring in terms of culture, sports, or whatever, or I missed something, but I don't think so. So zero. Unlike any other brand out there, they don't have brand ambassadors wearing their watches. The many very famous people in show business, in sports, etc., wearing those Nautiluses, Aquanaut, etc., they all pay for their watches. That's very unique. Keeping that generalistic approach of having more than one product family, with the Calatrava, the Aquanaut, Nautilus, etc., now the Cubitus, etc. That's very interesting. It's very clever. They have been always very reluctant to spread too much out, meaning the integration of their retail is marginal. They have 3 Patek Philippe salons worldwide: Geneva, Paris, and London. They will probably open up a few more down the road. They will probably integrate to some extent their retail, just like Rolex began with Bucherer. Sorry to come back with that. I was the only one predicting that it would happen one day, and I was proven for once right. And you will see there will be changes at Bucherer in a near future, in due course. And Patek Philippe is keeping, you know, people forget that the brand isn't what it is today for like 200 years. Until the 1980s, 90s, it was quite a confidential brand. I worked with a guy called Laurent Ferrier, who spent 37 years at Patek Philippe, who always told me the same story. He said, you know, Oliver, in the 1980s, we were selling a lot of quartz watches, even for men, even for the Nautilus line. The average price was blah, 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 that much, etc., etc. And then came all that renewed interest for watches in the 90s, etc. And then the brand again. But I think the most differentiating factor there, again, we had that question at the beginning, what makes the difference between a privately held brand and the listed brand, is that Mr. Stern, the owner, co-owner with his sister, and the CEO of the brand, he looks for decades. So that makes a good part of the success. And hopefully they will remain independent forever.
Yes, we hope so too.
No, I think there is no reason they would sell, even though it would make Mr. Stern a lot richer than he already is.
I think he's already doing quite okay. Yeah. But I mean, good. So another successful brand, much younger one, Jamil, celebrating 25th anniversary this year. What an incredible success! And each year, you know, comes this point where you say, "Oh, okay, they've reached kind of the limit of the system," and things like that. But they always prove us wrong.
No, it's the most amazing success story of watchmaking overall. It's building up a quintessentially the perfect luxury brand in any aspect, selling only through your monobrand boutiques, being at a very high price, very low quantities, a lot of limited editions, almost only limited editions at prices which are out of this world.
Remind us already the volumes of production and turnover.
Pardon me?
Remind us again the volumes of production.
The last year they achieved 1.75 billion Swiss sales, and they were just below the 6,000 watches, 5,950. So you see, I have access to some figures, unlike what some people are alluding to. So no, it's nothing. 6,000 watches a year is nothing, but the average price at 295,000 or even
staggering.
A little bit more Swiss, it's just amazing. The cheapest Richard Mille watch, 122,000 Swiss, excluding taxes. I mean, it's out of this world. But basically, it's about being coherent and consistent over time, sticking to your values, to your strategy, etc. Not, going once back, once forth. Everything has been set up to make it a success story, and it's a success story. The only, I always have to say something. The only limitation to their business model was when they launched the first limited edition with Ferrari, the SP01. They did 150 pieces. It was sold $1.88888 million. Crazy price. And then on the secondary market, as of today, you see that there is a discount of about 30% against retail, which is very seldom with Richard Mille watches. And now they came up with a new limited edition, again 150 pieces, and the price is substantially lower. It's still over $1 million. It's still serious money. But you see that there is, I think they understood that you can push very, very far, but there are some natural limitation. I would have, personally, I would have taken down the numbers of the limited edition, maybe 50 pieces, and kept the price. But, you know, they are right. I'm no one. They are Richard Mille. Kudos to them. Fantastic.
But, regarding that special Ferrari edition, I mean, it was a very special watch. I mean, so I can understand that they say, okay, well, this is so special that we can, you know, take it through the roof. But something interesting regarding Richard Mille also is that, I mean, until a couple of years back, indeed on the secondary market, I mean, most watches held or outperformed the selling price. And we've seen a contraction of that on many different models today. I mean, before you came out of the Richard Mille shop and you basically made money if you had this allocation, which is not necessarily the case anymore. You mentioned the Ferrari, but there are other examples like this. How do they handle, or how can they improve the handling of their secondary market, and what impact does it have on the primary market?
A lot. Because again, it's trust. So if people have to believe in the fact that there is value retention for what they are buying, they do a very good job. Since ever, they were one of the first brands, you know, taking care of the second hand, having dedicated, very highly qualified watchmakers to service the watches to make sure that they work perfectly, etc., that they are authentic to the last screw in the movement. So yes, it is important. Yes, the prices came down. Of course, it was a lot of over speculation, like currently on François Paul Journe.
Yeah, I mean,
another brand. But we are maybe back to a little bit more normal, and the brand is still growing. You know, when you sell 2,000 watches a year, then your secondary market is that big. You sell 6,000 a year and a few percentage more the year after, then of course it's starting to grow the secondary market, and it's less rare, and hence the prices maybe come down a little bit. It's still, I think, a good investment. It's statutory. When you wear a Richard Mille, everyone knows that you have
the message is clear. It's like
you have the price of a small apartment or a big apartment in some case.
Yes.
On your wrist.
Indeed, quite a message. But interestingly enough, I think, for instance, in the auction world, until a couple of years ago, you used to see quite a lot of watches coming on the market. But today it's pretty rare to see. I mean, there's much lesser watches sold in auctions from Richard Mille, I think.
From Richard Mille. Yes, I wouldn't have any numbers to. I am not the expert of auctions, but yes, that might be an indication that people keep their watches, which would be good, or they sell it elsewhere. Let's not forget the volume that is being traded peer to peer, and at this level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Auctions are very important overall to create image, to create storytelling about watches being sold at crazy high prices, the 1518 at Patek, etc. We know all those stories. Those are creating myth. Those are creating the trophy watches, the absolute grails, etc. The people at Philips in the first place, but also in other auction houses, they do a good work. Overall, it's a small part of the secondary market, which we estimate at about 25 billion. a year, and out of that, the auctions are only between 700 and 800 million.
But as you mentioned, in terms of image, it's
important.
It's important,
of course.
And I think regarding Patek, for instance, I mean, it has, I would imagine, I mean, a very important impact also on some regular customers saying, oh, well, you see what's happening over there. I mean, because you keep reminded of their performance in this auction world. And I think it's reassuring. Like
I don't think Patek has anything to rebound or there. But of course, yes, it is important. Brands have to be careful not to, to play silly games, trying to make the market believe into extraordinary prices which are out of this world. And I'm not going to, you can mention it if you want to, but there was a very, very bad example of where a brand wanted to make people believe that all of a sudden that same exact watch, or at least the same model, was all of a sudden 10 times the already very high price of the watch sold before at an auction. That's not smart.
No, it's but I mean, we see that kind of generally backfires, and it's difficult to distort the market.
It's a small world. It's a world of passionate people, very educated, literate people about watches. You have very good experts around. Geoffroy Adair at Adair Watches, my friend Alex Godby at Philips, etc. You have very, very good people. And when your customer asks you, is that really the price that I should pay for that? We'll tell you, well, I wouldn't.
Very politely.
Very politely. And so you have to be careful. I always tell people, buy vintage only if you have a trusted watchmaker telling you that it's 100% true, genuine, that there is no monkey business. And yes, a watch which has a 50-year on its back, probably not all the parts are coming from where they should come. That's less of an issue, but be very careful, of not having those Franken watches being,
I mean, there's been some stories, of course, and ultimately, going back to what you were saying before, I mean, that unfortunately breaks the trust.
Absolutely.
And it can completely, I mean, stop the dynamic, and then it's complicated to rebound from this.
There is one guy making tremendous work to highlight that monkey business is Jose Perez, Periscope.
He doesn't have only friends.
No, just like me. That's why we get along well together, because just like me, he thinks things he's not supposed to say. He's a lot wealthier than I am, so he can afford that he's not friend with everyone. But I think the work he does is very useful, and you see to what extent of detail you have to dive into when you buy a very expensive vintage watch, and you can't just trust someone who says this is the whatever blah blah blah. Trust me. When the guy tells you trust me, then you should be worried.
True. So I mean, we had a little digression regarding the secondary market and the world of auction. Let's go back to the state of the industry 2025. And talk about some of the other big players, and one of the big one obviously is Omega. From what you state in your report, basically it's just staying where it is since a few years. I mean, it's despite the fact of having like big marketing opportunities like the Olympic Games, that was already 2 years ago. I mean, but they're now the Olympic Games, the Winter Olympic Games, and so forth. I mean, what's going on with Omega?
It's my love brand.
I know.
First disclaimer, yes. I work there. Everyone knows by the time I think I said it so many times. No, it's an extraordinary brand. It means it's so unique, the DNA of the brand with NASA, first watch on the moon, whatever other tell. Cut the bullshit. It was Omega. We all know. Okay, there are also
Apart if we
people,
never went to the moon.
yeah,
But that's another problem.
I was going to say there are also people don't believing that they went up there. I met two people who went up there, so obviously there is some truth to it. No, extraordinary brand, limited in its ambitions, and I'm going to take one example where you understand that as good as the work as the brand itself delivers, it still has limitations due to the fact that it's part of the Swatch Group. For instance, diver watches. They have this extraordinary product line. They have 4 product lines, generalistic approach, which they always kept, Seamaster, Speedmaster, Constellation, and Deville, the dress watch. And you know, with divers watches, Seamaster, which is, by the way, James Bond's watch since '95, if I'm right. And they are not allowed to talk specifically on the diving part because in the group there is another brand called Blancpain. And does that make sense? Maybe it made sense once upon a time to have very differentiated brand territories within a group. That makes absolutely sense. Mr. Hayek Senior, again, because he was a visionary, he built up the 16 brands so that each brand would have its own brand territory, which was totally logical. But as of today, does it make sense that you communicate diving only with the 50 fathoms at Blancpain, which is a very nice, attractive watch, which in recent years they have done new product launches, very, very, very nice, really. And then you have the Seamaster at Omega, and I mean the potential of Omega is substantially higher, to say the least. So, you know, I would cut off those dogmas which are not making any sense anymore. And they have a strong competitor, of course, in front of them called Rolex. That makes life hard for them. They're quite successful at their level, but as you rightfully said, our estimates are indicating that the journey doesn't go up and they are not gaining market shares, not even in their core range. Okay, they are maybe gaining market shares. They are strong, for instance, with ladies' watches. Their main competitor is called Cartier. Omega is a very strong competitor against Cartier, and they do very nice dress watches, sports watches for ladies, and the proportion of ladies' watches at Omega is quite high. But the part missing there is that positive momentum that has been missing since now years. I'm sorry to say that. And then, just as a side remark, there is a very good report issued by a Swiss bank called Vontobel. And interestingly, Vontobel estimated Omega at 1.67 billion, substantially lower than what we estimated with Morgan Stanley. We are still at 2.2 billion. Who is right, who is wrong? I don't know, but it's a clear indication that the analysts at Vontobel share our opinion that the dynamic at Omega has gone, the growth dynamic, and that's they're keeping a good level. I still see a lot of potential. They do many good things in terms of products. I mean, we talked about it before. In terms of
quality, I mean, nothing to be said. I mean,
the quality in the last 20 years at Omega went up tremendously. There is one guy, sorry, Reynald, the CEO, you do an outstanding job, but the one guy who brought the product up at Omega is the guy now in charge of the show at Breguet, and hopefully, and he already showed that he understands what his trade is about, Gregory Kisling. Hopefully he does that magic trick again at Breguet and brings that unique name, legacy in Swiss
it's one of the
watchmaking.
most prestigious, significant name out there for sure. But indeed, I was glad to see last year concrete examples of things new, but sticking to the Breguet language. And no, it was that made me happy. And I see you talking. You mentioned about Breguet, Blancpain. Sorry about. It seems that also there's a little bit of a kind of a revival in a certain way with some new products that are coming also on top of what you mentioned about the 50 fathoms. But regarding the 50 fathom and the Seamaster, I mean there are different products. They're not positioned at the same price and things like that. So I mean I don't think one shadows the other necessarily.
Yes and no. As I always say, every watch is a potential competitor for another watch. But yeah, they have each their. But I don't see it as an issue. I would, you're right. I would open up and say, listen, Omega, if you want to talk about diving with the Seamaster. It absolutely makes sense. The Speedmaster, not even. We don't even have to debate about it. It's unique. It's one of the icons of the Swiss watch industry. But the brand overall, yes, not performing like it should. Not a catastrophe. No. Don't get me wrong. Like other people got me wrong. But overall, the group is certainly not overperforming the market. That is for a certain, unless someone comes up with figures contradicting what I'm just saying. And that is Olivier Müller / Luxconsult.
All right, so let's talk about one brand that is definitely performing very well and from year to year, Cartier. We mentioned about them just a little while back. Why is it working so well for them?
Because they went back to their roots. The former CEO, Mr. Vigneron, when he took over the brand, he stopped many things which were not making any sense for a brand like Cartier. Cartier is a very, very unique Parisian luxury maison with a unique history. And they always, I'm so full of praise because they always manage to retell the same story in a new way. That's extraordinary. The Panther, all their communication campaigns, they don't come over as, dusty or already seen, etc. It's always new and refreshing. That's the kind of strength that the real luxury brand has, and to regenerate all times and to reconnect with Gen Z, because now Gen Z has discovered that Cartier existed before the years 2000. It's always very funny for me that the young guys discovered that the brand was making watches already in the 70s and even before. So the prices of vintage Cartier are going up also. It's not through the roof, but they are picking up values. And the strength, the core strength of Cartier as a brand is having so many iconic products, both on the jewelry and the watches side. Tank, Santos, Pasha.
And you talk about more than 100-year-old watches.
Absolutely.
Those are, people keep forgetting about that. Indeed. I mean, Cartier has been around for a very, very long time, and with the design signature that is unique.
They stick to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's the extraordinary thing, is that they always manage to redo that same watch in a new way.
But what you mentioned about the appeal to a younger generation is indeed quite unique, I think. I mean, I have a few examples around me. I would just give you one. It's just like my goddaughter that is not necessarily completely attracted to the luxury world and things like that. But for her 18th birthday, she wanted a Cartier.
That's interesting. That's
And I
quite-
never expected that she would want a watch just to start with, but then on top of it, wanted a Cartier.
That's quite a compliment for the brand.
Absolutely.
My son is wearing my father passed away last year, and one of his watches was a Cartier, and my son is now wearing that watch very proudly because it's his grandfather's watch. That's very also important. All people are always talking about emotions, it's memories, etc., etc. But also he finds the watch very cool because it's very thin, it's small. That's a compliment for the brand, and that Cartier is just in the continuity. It's the same path, but always bringing new elements to the journey, like Hermès does, like Chanel does. Those luxury brands really manage to reinvent themselves at all times, and Cartier is really, really unique.
Absolutely, and
and still accessible.
That's the thing. I think it's a combination between. I mean, you do have this notion of luxury and prestige, obviously design, and at the same time, it remains more or less accessible. I mean, we're still talking a few thousand francs per watch, but nonetheless, I mean, they didn't go too crazy. They could have probably have the temptation of increasing further their prices, but they stick to something that is quite reasonable, if I can say so. And at the same time, regarding the retained value, it stays there also.
Yeah.
So if you combine all of this,
Sure.
I mean,
Sure, that's then you have the magic combo of success. It's not one thing; it's an alignment of important key success factors, and one of them is being able of regenerate, of staying relevant with new customers coming into the market, etc. Cartier. And the results are there. I mean, there are almost 3.5 billion Swiss sales for the watch business only. Most important brand at Richemont. They had 1 or 2 quarters, I don't remember, last year where the watch business grew faster even than jewelry. Normally jewelry, of course, is dominant. What else can you say? If you make a book about luxury branding, then you would have Cartier, you would have Rolex, you would have Richard Mille, and those are really, best-in-class studies. And of course, Hermès, Chanel, and others.
And so that enables me to rebound a little bit about the Richemont group, but just to finish off with Cartier, I think what's interesting is despite being a powerhouse of the luxury world since decades, when they indeed tried to appeal to the very, high collector type of customers, invested probably tens and tens of millions in there, came out with interesting products. But despite being Cartier, despite having that power, it doesn't work.
No.
So you have to stick back.
You have to stick to your roots. Their roots are much more into craftsmanship, métier d'art. They have their own atelier where they do engraving, gem setting, miniature, high fire enameling, etc., etc. So they do a million different things which fit into their DNA. I don't think highly mechanical complications are. They still do a little bit.
Sure.
Cartier Privé. They come up every year or every other year with interesting new products, but it's certainly not the brand's DNA.
No.
And it's not me saying this. It's a gentleman called Franco Coloni, who used to be an important man at Richemont, and he once told me a long time ago, I was a little bit younger, and he told me that basically he thought that Cartier could have some potential in the haute horlogerie, and that he was proven wrong because people were seeing Cartier as what it is. It's an elegant, dressy watch which bears good value. It's a reasonable price. You have the prestige, the status, etc. So why would you go somewhere else? But it was the trend, you know, once upon a time. The luck of Cartier was that they didn't go too much into the wrong direction.
And if we compare the Swatch Group with what you mentioned before, the fact of brands had their own territory and they stick with their territory, whereas with the Richemont Group, brands were allowed to compete against one another. And so meaning that basically they all came up with the same type of products within those different brands, instead of, you know, cultivating where you're kind of the best. And the example of Cartier going back to where it was known and where it was perceived as being, okay, the most interesting brands for the reason that we mentioned before. Well, it's proven them right. Whereas some with other brands, I mean, they, you know, we take one example with Baume & Mercier, which has been taken out of the Richemont family of brands. A brand like Baume & Mercier could have competed against Longines, could have competed with some kind of mid-level if it stayed there. But at one point, because being part of the Richemont family, I mean, prices came up. Oops. Then you had complications that were probably very nice, but I mean, that didn't have any really purpose within a brand like Baume & Mercier. And on top of it, I think it's, you know, it takes a lot of time and resources and you know, thinking hours to develop this type of product, and then you defocus from who you really are, with the consequences that it has.
That is, we are perfectly on the same page. Jean-Claude Biver, the industry legend, my boss once upon a time at Omega, I interviewed him for an academic article a few years ago. He was very, very, very reluctant to accept. But anyways, I convinced him. And he was saying something which is, it was published on Rutgers Business Review in the US. And he said something which is very relevant. He said, a brand should never change its DNA, but that doesn't mean that you can't adapt the way you live that DNA, how you create new products, etc. The thing is, don't stick to dogmas. The world changes, the weather changes, the technology changes. You have to adapt to that. And if you stick with things which are from the past, then all of a sudden you're not relevant anymore. I'm not going to bring you all the bad examples by the people I'm not supposed to talk about, but there you have a lot of those examples. And as you rightfully said, now all of a sudden you have those 16 brands and you look at all those new products and you don't see any different from one brand to the other at different price levels, etc. I mean, you know,
it gets confusing.
It gets very confusing, absolutely. And okay, overall in the watch industry, there is this tendency, you know, of this going back to neo-vintage, and everyone tries to redo the 1950s to the 1980s, trying to redo kind of a Nautilus or a whatever chronograph, and then you start looking at the market and you say, but okay, what's the difference? I exchange the name. I can't say who is behind the watch. That's not the case at Richard Mille, and so on and so on. You know, when you have a differentiating factor, a strong one, a design language, stick to it.
Yeah, cultivate it. So regarding Richemont, Vacheron is still performing quite well. I mean, it went a little bit down apparently, but it's still, still one of the strong brands of the group. Can you walk us through a few of these brands of the Richemont, what they're currently going through?
Yeah. Cartier, we did extensively.
Yes.
Van Cleef, success story à la Cartier, both jewelry and watches. Of course, it's a lot smaller than Cartier. It's more quiet. You see it less because it's a different price region, etc. And then you have what they call the specialist watchmakers division, which were 8 brands, one less from don't know where they will close the deal with Damiani.
Yeah.
They are selling the brand to Damiani. I think it's a good decision. It's a very, very fine brand. It's an excellent brand, which was a little bit, left aside, the Richemont, for whatever reasons. But as you say, probably it's more because of a cultural clash between a luxury group and something, let's put it that way, Baume & Mercier should maybe belong to Swatch Group, but they have already enough with their 16 brands. But it would be more in their
more logical,
DNA. Yeah. And then you have a brand, Panerai. Yeah. Panerai, difficult situation, not performing like it should be. Is it overall a brand which will regain its strength it had once upon a time? I doubt very much. It's a fine brand. It has a strong and weak aspect to it. The strong aspect that is a very clear and recognizable design. We all know, at least some people interested in watches, we all know what Panerai stands for. Panerai took a little bit strange paths, all of a sudden talking about innovative products and experience and this and that. I think they should just stick to what they are. It's a tool watch, a very nice one. They have their aficionados around the world, and that limits also the potential growth of that brand. So currently a little bit in a difficult situation. Positive news from IWC, they finally rebounded. We estimated that they had a small, but compared to the average, substantial growth of 5% year on year. Of course, they are coming back from low levels, so the +5 need to be a little bit interpreted, but no, they might have more potential.
How do you explain this rebound?
I think they went back to reshuffling a little bit the collection. They are currently probably also getting back to where they were strong. Maybe they should even more. When I look at IWC, I'm always missing the strengths of what was once upon a time their main asset, which was bold,
definitely,
German inspired, even though it's Switzerland, but anyways,
with communication
on the border,
with communication campaigns that you can't do anymore.
No. 2026, you would run the same. You would probably end up in prison for decades. But it was strong. They needed or they need to adapt that. But still, they rebounded. I'm happy for them. It's a fine brand, fine products. The challenge for IWC is always that in terms of prices, they're a little bit high. And that makes life difficult for them when they are being compared to one of their competitors, Omega. Even though at Omega on some product lines, you could also come up with the same remark of the price, which went up too much. Then we have Jaeger-LeCoultre.
Just regarding IWC, and still talking about communication, to what extent do you think that the success of the Formula One movie has had on their business?
I don't know. Maybe that's a good point. I doubt always. I said Patek Philippe, the Rolls-Royce of Swiss-made watchmaking. They have 0 brand ambassadors, 0 sponsoring, etc. Has it done good to IWC? Probably.
I mean, it's probably one of the smartest product placement, because I mean you could see it
Probably.
throughout the movie basically. And
Yeah, sure. Probably it brought back attention. Formula One is really becoming relevant again since a few years, since the Netflix series, etc. So, yeah, probably it has done good. I always come up with the example of the Seamaster at Omega. First movie, the sales of the whole Seamaster line at Omega went up by I think 2 or 3 times, and long term 5 times when we had done the second movie, etc. So it pushes the whole brand, it makes the whole brand more relevant, and it's not only and I'm going to be a little bit cocky because I pretend to know the references by heart. The 2531 AD, which is the James Bond watch, just went through the roof, and maybe that positive effect that IWC played in their favor. Maybe
an assumption. So you were starting to talk about Gégère-Lecoultre.
Also positive momentum coming in. We can see that the latest product launches are on more sustainable or more acceptable prices, because that was also a main issue. There are 2 issues at Gégère-Lecoultre, my opinion. The Master line, it's a little bit dusty. Very nice watch. I love those watches. I love the brand, by the way. Again, I don't work for Gégère-Lecoultre. I don't advise them. I love this brand since ever, but those watches are too old-fashioned. They would, in fact, it's a little bit contradictory with what I said before, that neo-vintage coming in, but that neo-vintage at Gégère-Lecoultre should be cooler to connect with Gen Z, and apparently they have a hard time still. I hope Jérôme Lambert, he knows the brand inside out, that he will manage to turn that around. Then on the other side, they have one of the most iconic product in watches, which are the Reverso. We'll see. And then there are those rumors coming up. I don't give much credit to those rumors. I think there will be other brands at Richemont which are going to be divested, sold in due course. But let's not.
Gégère is at the core of the Richemont group. I mean,
it's such a fine brand, and I wish it turns back to the glory it once had. It's not. Again, it's not.
Sadly, I feel like I'm saying this every year regarding them. So I really hope that this time there is something happening.
Let's give Jérôme Lambert, the CEO, a little bit more time. It takes time to develop products. It's an extraordinary integrated, verticalized manufacturer, so they have all the means it takes.
Oh, for sure.
That's Gégère. Whom else are we missing? Piaget, a little bit, not so successful in watches, even though they have all legitimacy to do watches since ever.
Yes.
I don't know what it needs there. It's not a catastrophe, but not as successful as it could be. And which one are we missing?
We have Lange, which is pretty stable.
Lange. What shall I say? I love the brand. You look at the prices on the secondary market, you instantly understand that the watch collectors don't buy into the long-term perspective of that brand. I mean, that's in your face. Yeah. I always tell watch collectors, you want to do a good buy, you can buy an extraordinary chronograph, double, triple, split seconds chronograph at Lange & Söhne. It's an extraordinary product, but look at how much they are being discounted on the secondary market. It's catastrophe. It's not good for the brand equity. And the brand is good. The brand, no, it's not good. It's extraordinary, but it's not growing. Yeah. I mean, their main number one competitor is Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe, 2.5 or 2.6 billion turnover, and then you have Lange & Söhne with 1/10 of that value.
Yeah.
And it's not that they started yesterday, but maybe I did one prediction right in my life, because when I saw the first time a Lange & Söhne, it was on the wrist of a German specialized journalist, and he showed me that, and I looked at the watch. I didn't know what Lange was. I didn't know about the history, etc., etc. It was, I think, in 97 or 98, if I remember right. And I said to him, you know, made in Germany, no chance. And maybe, I don't know. You know, the Germans have a rich tradition. They're very good in engineering. You have fine brands like Nomos doing interesting
a few
things.
examples for sure. And the one thing I think we can be thankful is that it shook up the Swiss watchmaking industry at a time where it needed it, and it kind of helped raise the bar in the 90s, and I think we're still benefiting from this moment of being woken up positively. Let's maybe switch group now and talk about you. We kind of briefly talked about LVMH, which is a huge player of the luxury world. And regarding its watch division, what can be said?
A lot. Watch division. Basically, it's only 3 brands. Right? It's Zenith, Hublot, and Tag Heuer. And are not overly successful for the time being. Hublot is in a very complicated situation. They lost a lot of momentum. Last year they had the jubilee of the Big Bang. Was more or less successful. They have Julien Tornard as the CEO, who is trying very hard to revive the brand. The new strategies about going in a higher price range, much more haute horlogerie. My personal opinion is that Hublot doesn't belong there, and he has a very, very tough challenge, Julien Tornard. It's one of the brands with the highest badwill amongst watch brands. Yeah. It's incredible, all that negative that is being said and written about Hublot, which the brand definitely doesn't deserve. Yeah. They do products which you like or dislike. They do some very limited editions in the high end, which are very interesting.
I mean, technically speaking, they do interesting things.
And they manufacture, etc. Do they manufacture everything in-house? No, they don't, but they do a lot already in-house. So they would deserve a little bit more consideration, I think. So currently, very difficult situation. The brand was negative against last year, despite that jubilee year. Tag Heuer, changing the CEO every other year might not be the magic recipe to bring stability. Antoine Pain came and left within 15 months. What can you do in 15 months? Nothing. You can't do miracles. He had 2 difficult challenges. One was that very expensive sponsoring of Formula One, which is an extraordinary marketing instrument, no doubts about that. Is that not a little bit too much of an investment at the size of Tag Heuer? Probably, and then it becomes difficult to improve your P&L when you have on 1st of Jan already, about, let's put it, that half or 1/3 of your marketing budget, boom. Because it's what you pay as a sponsoring fee, and it's what you pay additionally on activation.
Activation,
cost,
of course.
okay.
Yeah.
And the very simple rule that we have is that we say the activation costs are at least as much as the sponsoring cost, or even 2 times that much. Yeah. You need to communicate. you need to invite your clients, you need etc., etc., etc. So it's a lot of
It's
money.
an expensive game, yeah.
And then the other thing, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make another friend, but he already knows what I think about the connected watches, smartwatches. They should stop that. Better yesterday than today, or even worse tomorrow. The smartwatches at Tag Heuer, I mean, it's a distraction from their business. It doesn't make any sense. Did it make sense in the beginning? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not here to prove someone wrong. But as of today, they are just a meaningless, just as the at Tissot with the T-Touch connected. I mean, a connected watch is about being connected to a cloud, to an ecosystem, because it's about data. The data when you walk, the data when you run, the data whatever, what your health is about, or when you go golfing, etc., etc. So why would anyone in the world spend 3 times the amount of an extraordinary instrument measuring my word, which is not a watch, but it's called the Apple Watch? I mean, why would you spend 3 times that amount?
And which you know will be obsolete within the next couple of years, by definition. I mean, whether it's the battery not working anymore or whatsoever. I mean, new OS, whatever.
I bought one smartwatch from a Swiss brand called Alpina. And I was really not happy, to say the least. I didn't spend a fortune, but it was a few $100. And after 3 years, I was just told that they would stop smartwatches. So you take your watch, and it was a good-looking watch. It was cool. It was working so-la-la with the pairing with the iPhone, etc., etc. That's the strength of Apple. Anything you buy just works. You have your watch, you have your computer, you have your headphones, everything works instantly. Sorry,
No. But what was interesting about the Alpina and Frédéric Constant smartwatches, I don't know if they still continue to do that. Okay.
No. Well, but Frédéric Constant, yes, I think they still have.
But they had this
Alpina.
more of a kind of analog way of being a smartwatch. And then indeed by syncing it with your phone, it would give you some information or whatsoever. But I mean, it was not completely going the smartwatch way as Tag did. Do we have any idea of the volumes of smartwatches that Tag produces or sells?
No idea. Must be a few thousands at best. And the thing is...
Not tens of thousands.
No. Definitely not.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is, it's distraction from your brand management. And then the worst part is now to come, because what many watch managers forget is that at the end of the day, okay, you can do e-commerce, whatever, but at the end of the day, you have a sales counter, okay, with one guy coming in, says, I would like to see your smartwatch. And then your sales clerk, who could sell a Carrera with a much better margin, etc., in half an hour, he starts convincing and explaining that bloody smartwatch for like an hour. And then the client says, okay, I take it, but can you pair it with my phone? Then you have to pair that bloody watch, etc. So you have lost between 1 hour, 1.5. So I'll let you imagine how much you distract your salespeople, even though you have dedicated people for the smartwatch. You distract them away from the products where you do the margin. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, interesting.
And Louis Vuitton, by the way, the Louis Vuitton Horlogerie, which is not part of their watch business unit, has already stopped the smartwatches.
Okay.
And they did cool smartwatches.
Yeah, that was interesting with the notion of, voyeur journey.
Exactly.
There was one could explain it in a certain
indeed,
way.
I agree, but they stopped for probably the same reasons.
With Tiger, it's like, okay, I'm a golfer, and Tiger has an app for golfing, which is absolutely great, probably one of the best ones out there. They actually bought this app it was another company before, and it's okay, well, we have like a huge pool of people using this app, so we'll be able to cross-sell our smartwatches. So I still use this app, of course, but I still use my Garmin watch once in a while, you know. And because, spending that much money on it is, there's a huge gap there, and the app by itself is doing a good thing. I understand the strategy, but I don't think it turned out that well. So we talked about Tag Heuer. Hopefully it can rebound. What's impressive about Tag Heuer is the decline of production volume over the years. I mean, it's quite impressive. So I don't know to what extent it'll be able to go back to those volumes anytime soon. But it's when you consider how big the brand was only like 10, 15, 20 years ago compared to what they produce now, it's quite...
That's concerning, and that's the overall analysis that we make about the Swiss watch industry, that the volumes are going away. Yes, they went down substantially, and I don't think they will go back into the volumes, because the strategy is quite the opposite. It's to go higher in the prices. They have to be very careful with that, because you lose, you know, your historical client by going way too up into the prices. And I mean, doing a split seconds chronograph for more than 100,000 Swiss. Okay, probably the marketing VP would explain to me, Mr. Müller, it's about creating a talking piece, and I don't know what, but I would say, and you know, it's not even a movement coming from in-house. It's a moving coming from Vaucher. Not saying that Vaucher is not good, not at all.
Of course not. No.
Vaucher makes a lot of movements for Richard Mille,
for instance. Yes. For instance, yeah.
So, but yeah, Tag Heuer, difficult one, and then Zenith.
All right, let's talk about Zenith. Yeah. Zenith
for me is the brand that everyone loves and of which no one buys the watches. It's brutal.
Yes.
My apologies. I love the brand again. Rich history. I don't think the brand ever had the history that some aficionados are crediting the brand with.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So no. Zenith definitely benefited from the scarcity of the early 20s. I mean, when everybody was looking indeed for their Nautilus and blah, 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 and so forth. So there was a bit of... For people that really wanted to buy a cool mechanical watch, Zenith was a perfect option. And then when the market dynamics changed a little bit, I think they got hurt from that. And they're not the only ones. I mean, there's some other brands that also had sporty models that had, a few good years and then went back to normal.
At Vacheron, Laureato, Girard Perregaux, etc. They are all fine watches per se, but of course, they don't have that iconic appeal that the trophy watches that you just named have. And at Zenith, it's just, you know, if the goal is to keep it at that level, and the goal is also to keep it as a manufacturer for sister brands, to manufacture high-end chronographs or the elite line, which is the more accessible one. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it can find a living there, but don't expect Zenith, you know, to be amongst the top of the Morgan Stanley annual report. Unfortunately, I don't think so.
So if I take Zenith and Hublot, okay.
Yes.
Kind of a parallel path between the two, despite the fact that Hublot was much bigger than Zenith and so forth. I mean, it was present everywhere in football and sponsorship, Formula One, whatever you name it, anything like that. Do you think brands, and this can be applied to us for other brands also, do you think brands are capable of accepting of producing less, being stuffed for less production, less marketing investment and things like that, not go crazy with their prices, and be sustainable? You know, instead of shooting only for growth, but saying, okay, well, maybe the most important is just to be sustainable.
That's what any brand as a company should be about, because the main goal is that you are here for the long term. And if you start, overshooting, then you take the risk that you don't make it in the long term, in the long run. And again, then we are back to the beginning of our discussion, which is what makes the difference between a privately held brand and a brand held by a listed company. It's exactly that. It's growth. And then by coincidence, you have, I'm just saying this as a pure coincidence, you have a private equity coming in and saying, you need to do that much more top line, and more importantly, that much more bottom line. And because in 7 years we resell or we do the IPO, and then you have pressure, and the market is maybe not in line with your objectives, etc. So very difficult. Unlike what some people say, LVMH is here for the long term.
For
in
sure.
Any of their
For
businesses.
Sure.
They have owned Zenith since '99.
Yes.
They have, beyond any doubts, lost a lot of money every year.
Around the same time also?
Yeah. And they have lost a lot of money, and they stick to it. And then we come to the glorious part of the watchmaking at LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton, la manufacture du temps, la fabrique du temps, sorry. That's the interesting part. It's not that Venice is not interesting, but yes, it's the question is, for me, is it good that it stays with LVMH? Yes and no. It's good because at least you have a rich owner who is capable of feeding, a brand which is obviously not generating a positive cash flow since a long time. And that's one way to look. The flip side is you keep a brand alive and it's not doing the basic works. And maybe it's what you're saying. It's maybe instead of trying to go over 100 million sales, maybe Zenith would be better off doing 50 million with private owners, being sustainable, self-financed, making some money, etc. Sorry.
No. But coming back to what you were saying about TAG, in that split-second chronograph, and indeed when they did it, outsourced that with, partnered with Vaucher, and at the time they were very open about this collaboration. But it was at a time where LVMH had this appetite for Vaucher. That deal didn't go through. Yeah. But then why? If they wanted to have a movement manufacturer, they already had one. It's Zenith, and historically speaking, Zenith is a manufacturer, okay, before being a brand. So why did they invest more maybe in Zenith's manufacturing capabilities?
That's a very good question, which I'm asking myself all the time. Now I talked a little bit helicopter view, but if you go down and you look at what Zenith really is, it's a very fine manufacturer, but certainly in terms of industrial capacities and know-how, it's probably not by far comparable with what Swatch Group does. Swatch Group is really excellent. They are probably amongst the best in class with Rolex at this industrial level.
And one thing, I'm sorry to interrupt,
sorry,
very
please.
sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
something
yeah.
I think that needs to be pointed out and is important and is all to the, I mean, not the glory of the SWOT group, but nonetheless, I mean, there has been indeed maybe a bit of difficult times and so forth, but nonetheless, it's a group that didn't, I mean, they didn't make redundant working positions. I mean, they reduced a little bit, of course. I mean, they don't talk too much about it, but compared to other ones that benefited from more federal subsidies and so forth, I mean, they stick true to the core of the people there because they know those are the guys that are making it possible.
Sure.
And so I think that's something that needs to be said and respected for
Sure,
them.
sure. That I'm always saying this, that if the Hayek family deserves a lot of compliments and respect, is that they keep working places, headcounts in Switzerland, which are far above from what other companies would be able or willing to afford. It's very important. That's why it's such an important topic, because it's not just a company, it's not just a group or a house of brands. It's much more than that.
It's an ecosystem by itself.
Absolutely. And they are very, very good and efficient on an industrial basis, very strong. They're sticking to their values. The Hayek family is prepared. They haven't asked for the RHT, the short reduction of working hours, where the by the way, this is a remark I want to make. It's not subsidies from the Swiss government like it has been written all over the time. I just lectured an English-speaking journalist who asked me about that, and I said, no, it's not the case. It's the workers and the company paying equally the same amount, and over a certain cap, the company pays more than the worker in a scheme which is like an insurance for those type of cases where you have economic downturn cycles to avoid laying off people. And the SWOT group would have been entitled for this, rightfully. They didn't. Is it a good decision or not? I'm not going to comment on that. It's their decision. But they deserve a lot of respect for what they are keeping alive. 158, at least it's what they say, factories in Switzerland and elsewhere, a lot of know-how. They still continue to train apprentices. So, that is all important for the ecosystem. Kudos. I'm not here, unlike what some people think, I'm not here to say only bad things about this family, this group, and their brands. They deserve a lot of respect. Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back to LVMH, and you were mentioning La Fabrique du Temps, Gérald Jantin, Daniel Roth that comes along, and Louis Vuitton itself. Obviously, it's probably a little bit more fun to play around with these kind of toys.
Sure.
But is that precisely defocusing then a little bit of the attention on those big powerhouses, or at least the Tag Heuer powerhouse?
It's not trying to get the attention away from where it doesn't work, where it should work a lot better. It's creating image, it's creating legitimacy in watchmaking. That's very important. It's image building, yes, that's for sure. It's coherent with the overall DNA of the LVMH group, which is a lot of, unlike what some people think, say, and write again. Yes, of course, there are things which, has less to do with craftsmanship, but still within the Louis Vuitton group, LVMH group, there is a lot of craftsmanship, and that's what Jean Arnault, the youngest son of Bernard Arnault, the chairman of the group and main shareholder, wants the group to be. Jean Arnaud does an extraordinary work with La Fabrique du Temps, with the Louis Vuitton watches. Very bold, he increased the price level. They are cutting out all the SKUs which were from before with ETA and Celita movements. They are more into complicated, more expensive things.
And very complicated.
Very complicated.
They're going.
And then they revived Roth, Daniel Roth and Gérald Jantin, also two niche brands. Those will remain niche. And of course...
But it was interesting with these two is that they were under the umbrella of Bulgari for many years.
Yes.
And they kept producing a few seldom watches here and there. But then you see that by taking it out and giving them their own existence, it seems that it's working again. So that the combination of one brand overseen by another and things like that makes it a little bit complicated. And I'm thinking just out loud, because we were talking about Richemont before, with Montblanc and Minerva. And I think we have a bit of the same situation there. But that's just a little side note.
Yeah. The move out of the brand portfolio of Bulgari back to Louis Vuitton, La Fabrique du Temps, it's pure speculation, but it's due to the fact that there are two master watchmakers at La Fabrique du Temps called Michel Navas and Enrico Barbezzini, as everyone knows. Two friends of mine and two ex-business partners at Laurent Ferrier. And they worked for those brands and they knew how important in terms of image, again, those brands could be in terms of building up the legitimacy of Louis Vuitton watches with watch collectors. And it's a very smart move, and probably didn't take them much time and convincing power to gain Jean Arnaud's trust to revive those two brands and the products since they have restarted. Just very, very, very cool, very fine watches. At Louis Vuitton, it's a little bit, it's buying a watch from someone who is not a watchmaker per se at quite a substantial price. The Tambour micro rotor is around, 19,000 euros. Kudos to them. They sell only in their own POS, about 450 worldwide. So it limits already. And anyone coming from a Louis Vuitton watch is anyways probably, at least it's my assumption, that anyone coming in from a watch is anyways a Louis Vuitton customer, so you don't need to win him over for the brand. You need to convince him maybe of the watch. Their strategy is to say it very politely, probably a lot inspired by what Hermès has done, but it's very clever. The manufacturer, La Fabrique du Temps, is just, it's a nice place to. Have you been there? Yes. I have been there many times. It's so nice. It's really watchmaking at its best because you see passionate people, you see craftsmen, etc. I'm not saying that you are not seeing this at Breguet or Blancpain or Patek Philippe. You certainly see that. But it's all new. It's a lot of positive energy. And one thing, and it's not to brush the shoes or shoe shine Jean Arnaud, but the most important is that you have someone standing in front of something and incarnating the values, the passion, etc. And Jean is really so passionate about watches, and that's really inspiring, and it's a very positive signal sent to the whole industry. There are passionate people like you outside of brands. There are passionate people like Max Büsser, Edouard Mellon at Moser, who really incarnate that passion. Sometimes you see watch brand CEOs where you think where he could also sell whatever cars or bags, etc. You know, he doesn't care too much about watches. With those people, you really feel that there is passion.
Yeah, and what's interesting with the Arnault family is that, I mean, owner of LVMH, I mean, those gazillions of brands, prestige and so forth, the glitz, I mean, you name it and so forth. But nonetheless, there were quite a lot of the kids that were involved in the watchmaking division, showing that watchmaking is indeed something special. You know, there's a special appeal. You know, you could be obviously wanted to go a little bit more under the flashlights of the fashion world or whatsoever, but they were, I mean, okay, most of them are engineers, so maybe that explains also a little bit.
And then maybe also a more trivial explanation is that don't take it as disrespectful, but you know, Louis Vuitton watches, the whole watches for Louis Vuitton, the brand, is less than 1% of the sales of the brand. Yeah. Overall, the watches...
Of the Louis Vuitton brand?
Of the Louis Vuitton brand.
Okay, so in the group,
it's nothing, you know. So if it doesn't work out, but it seems that it works out very well, if it doesn't work out, it's not too bad. It's not a catastrophe. Yeah. Overall, the whole watches and jewelry business, on the group's total turnover, it's about 12%. Wow. So it's not, you know, and it's quite similar to overall what Bain is estimating on the personal luxury goods, which watches make out 15% and jewelry another few percent, more important percentage, etc. So it's for LVMH, at least, it's not overwhelming important today, but as you saw at Tiffany, or you're seeing at Tiffany, they're investing substantial amounts of money, so they have ambitions there. They're doing also high jewelry at Louis Vuitton. You know, they have ambitions, and I think Jean will be the man of the future on this side.
But interestingly, to have family members that are so implicated in such a small portion of the overall business of a group like LVMH. You mentioned Tiffany. It's interesting to talk about that quickly, because it has rebounded quite a lot over the last years, I would say. I mean, the watchmaking part is, I mean, coming with new design and things like that, which seemed to appeal, because it was a brand that had ambitions like 10, 15 years ago, I remember, and then it kind of faded away, and it seems that it's gaining again a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, I hope so. It's at least what we understand from the market. It's quite it's a substantial project, because it's a total repositioning in different price regions. The whole image of the brand was redone, and you have to be careful not to scratch or scrap the truth, the DNA, the historical DNA of the brand, and you have to bring that in a more modern, in a fresher, in a regenerated way, and make new products, etc. It will take time. The first results are coming in now. There are always those people saying, I see it's LVMH, and they are not achieving it. It takes time. Luxury, as we say in French, le temps long, it's long time frames. You don't turn around a brand, or you don't just reposition like this in a few weeks, few months, and then they bought it just at the wrong time because, COVID, and then you need more time. But the positive momentum is, I think, building up. They have a very clear positioning, very clear competing brands, which they're going after.
Yeah, I think we talked about these before, no?
Yes. No, I think it's working out well. They would need to put that same energy on their business unit. I'm not saying they're not putting energy, don't get me wrong, But I think there it needs really a strong push, and they are capable of it. They are most successful at brands Bulgari and Louis Vuitton at their level, Ceteris Paribus. They are more successful with watches than the pure players of Tag Heuer, Hublot, and Zenith.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's maybe their challenge to understand that when you're Tag Heuer, your approach, even though you're a luxury brand, might be a little bit different, and that makes the beauty of our watch industry.
Absolutely. So maybe to finish up on LVMH, let's quickly talk about Bulgari, which has been chasing records for years and years and years in the ultra-thin department, let's put it that way, but throughout. But how is the brand performing?
The brand is performing very well.
The brand, yeah. I'm talking about the watch
the
part.
watches. The watches are performing well. A little bit, of course. The importance of watches within the whole product portfolio was reduced a lot the last 2 decades. About 20-something years ago, watches would make up more than 20% of the total sales of the brand. And of course, jewelry grew a lot faster. It's a jewelry brand in the first place. So it's not that the watches are not successful, but they don't have that same positive growth momentum that jewelry had. But overall, the brand is doing very well. It's probably very profitable brand, and the watches are being seen as legitimate. Very strong designs, very iconic products, and that quest for the thinner and thinner. It's a good positioning. It's they took a little bit the place from like a brand called Piaget.
Yeah, definitely.
Who used to be world champion in that field, and they came. And then we had Richard Mille with the SP01.
They completely overshadowed Piaget. That's for sure. And year after year, I think it's you take one punch, and then the next year you take another one. Ultimately, it probably has a little impact on your psyche.
Indeed.
But the interesting, I think there's a little parallel between Bulgari and you're talking about Hermes before, where Bulgari watches, I remember in the 80s, 90s and so forth, was really kind of an accessory watch. They were like, there were many kind of rather cheap models and so forth. There was a way of entering the you know what? I'm saying completely bullshit right now because I'm thinking of Gucci.
I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm completely off. It's okay, never mind.
We're almost 3 hours into our discussion, so that's
okay. So next topic, but we're reaching the end, almost, I hope. And let's talk about one brand that is this is also a big player and which has developed significantly its business over the last 5 years. Talking obviously about Breitling. And what can be said about Breitling? Because we hear things, let's put it that way, regarding the brand. It has had a phenomenal growth, explained through multiple reasons. Huge retail network that expanded with their own type of boutiques and so forth. I'm talking about like 300 points of sale. Breitling points of sale, not necessarily their own, but nonetheless throughout the planet. That must have costed a fortune to implement. Obviously, help push. You have to fill those stores with bottles and so forth, which explains probably some of the growth. So where do they stand now?
They have lost the growth momentum now for the second year in a row. They are flattish. They were slightly minus, and we estimated them at a -3. They are still doing,
which is not bad.
No, which is not bad, and they have. They had that very strong growth period where they would have some organic growth, meaning from their own products, growth of sales. but also a good part of it was capturing sales and margins from the middleman, distributors, commercial agents, etc. And that, of course, pushed a lot, and in such a spectacular way, from around the 300 million when they took over to the 800 something where they are today, and around 830 million turnover. It's quite remarkable. They're still up there. Don't forget, some people are already telling me, yeah, you know, it's done with Breitling. I don't think so. They still have a lot of potential. It's the work done at the beginning for the rebranding, for the rebuilding of the pillars. I always talk about brand territory, which was mainly about expanding from only one, which was aviation, going to water, aviation, and whatever. You know, they built up that in a very academic manner, so as to say. Very academic exercise of marketing, rebuilding up their whole retail operations, etc., etc. But as of today, they are a little bit, you know, stuck, and they have strong competitors. To name them, Tudor is a strong competitor, especially in the US, where Breitling has been strong since ever. But Tudor is catching up very fast. Omega, Tag Heuer, all very strong competitors, and last but not least, a brand called Rolex, because they have still some brands, some products which are on the same price ranges. And yes, it will need a substantial push. There was a recent article in the Financial Times which was quite critical about how well things go, because as we both know, the owners are two private equity funds, CVC and Partners Group, and private equity funds by definition are not here for eternity.
Yes.
That's for certain.
But at the same time, when CVC came along, it was almost 10 years ago, I thought they would be there for 3 to 5 years, and they're still there.
Yes, but the CVC earned a lot of money.
Yeah, they made a lot.
They made substantial amounts of money, indecent amounts of money. They are happy. They are still in.
Yeah, the new one maybe a bit less.
The Partners Group, it's more difficult, and as you have probably read in the article, CVC cut down the valuation of Breitling, of its Breitling share, by 30%. Partners Group and CVC by 50%.
Yeah.
So that's quite a not so positive message of how you think that things have gone.
But I've never understood from the start the valuation at 4.2 billion that was made a few years back. That's without being in the books of the company and things like that. That seemed from the start quite high.
The financial world, and especially private equity, it's about being greedy and thinking that it can always be more and more and more. I'm not saying private equity is bad per se. They help a lot of brands and companies to grow and to change gears when you need money and you are not big enough to go to the stock market. Private equity steps in, and it's a little bit the intermediate step between being private and independent to being private but linked to a private equity fund or company, and then the next step would be IPO or not. So at Breitling, it's the question will be what can re-trigger that growth momentum. They have a very outspoken CEO, to say the least. I appreciate Mr. Kern a lot because he's very clear about his blueprint or his roadmap about what he's going to do with that brand, and he has delivered a lot of things. Now, you know, he's a little bit in a difficult situation where you came with a lot of announcement It's like the boxer on the ring, you know, who trash talks his adversary. And one day you are on the ring and you have the guy whom you have trash talk, and you discover that he's a little bit higher than you and stronger. I love boxing, by the way.
I like the analogy.
You have to start figuring out, because you're a little bit smaller, a little bit less maybe athletic than your opponent, and you have to start figuring out tactics.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not going to win. The current heavyweight, undisputed Mr. Usyk, he's an extraordinary boxer. He's a lot smaller than most of his opponents, but he boxes so much better. So to take that image over to Breitling. Breitling can achieve that. And Mr. Kern is certainly one of the best CEOs in this industry. The big question mark now is the relaunch of the two sister brands. Mr. Kern was, but I was saying this a long time before he started saying it, that the industry had way too many brands. Okay? I was always saying that long term we would have maybe 15 to 20 relevant brands at a certain level. We are not talking artisan watchmakers who live their life, but the institutional brands. And Mr. Kern always said then, since a few years ago, that in the long term the watch industry will be made of by about 10 brands, and of course Breitling would be out, as we obviously understood, would be one of the 10, and that there were too many brands, etc. And all of a sudden he tells us that he is adding 2 more to the estimated 450 Swiss-made watch brands. So you look at that and you say, well, one brand which needs another kick to go up to the next stage of growth, and then you come up with 2 other projects. That's my questioning. Gallet below, Gallet 2,500 to 4,000. A history with chronographs. That's a common thread with Breitling and Universal Genève, Universal Genève, which should be above, substantially above Breitling. And then, of course, the goal is to regain momentum for the house of brands, as they call it. So it's to avoid saying that they are a group. You know, it's a nicer term. It's a nicer terminology to say that you are a house of brands. Okay, fair enough. And the 3 are very fine brands. My lecture of that strategy is that it's bringing a lot of complexity, and that you need to focus.
Well, I mean, if they're using the same industrial capabilities throughout the 3 brands, then it's kind of difficult, obviously, to position the Universal Genève really way higher if it's more or less the same. I mean, it's...
No, it's not the goal. It's that they will have dedicated calibers and that they differentiate the product.
I think they need to, but nonetheless, Universal Genève, and they're never going to do tens of thousands of watches, I think, you know. It's...
No, that's the tricky point. That's the good point that you're bringing up. It's that somewhere economics kick in, and that where you are faced with industrial challenges, you need to figure out where you need to go in terms of economies of scale, but still you have to differentiate from each other, etc., etc. You know, it's Swatch Group, 1983, SMH, it was called. They decided to crush all dedicated manufacturers. The Longines manufacturer went away. The dedicated Omega manufacturer went away. With a rich history, people were crying, seeing the machines being thrown out of the factories. And it was probably a good decision to save the whole group. Mr. Hayek Sr. and Mr. Ernst Tomke, the head of ETA, took the good decisions to concentrate everything. And then 20 or 25 years later, you restart building up the Omega manufacturer, and probably one day there will be, and then you have Breguet, which and Blancpain, a very fine manufacturer, etc. So you restart, in fact, the reverse way. It remains to be seen. You're always smarter post than before, but we'll see.
So Breitling they've done some important sponsorship investments recently. You were talking about the price of the price of activation of such sponsorship is quite significant. They've done one with the NFL. The entire NFL is probably one of the most expensive franchise that you can associate with. It's a significant one. You have tens of millions of people looking at this, but in America, I don't know if it has a worldwide appeal. Not so sure about that, but American market is already.
Remind me, American football is the guys with the helmets pretending to play rugby.
Those are the ones. Those are the ones.
For my American man, I don't want to be punched in the face.
Throw the ball forward. It's not rugby. What's going on?
It's not the game.
But anyhow, they've done a massive deal with the NFL. With all the teams, basically, and then we'll have to activate all this. So that's going to be significant cost. They've done a new deal now with Aston Martin, Formula One, coming back to what we were mentioning before, immediately coming out with the exclusive limited edition of 1,959 pieces, if I'm not mistaken, but positioned at, I can't remember if it was 10, 12 or 13,000 Swiss franc. You're in the Rolex category there and things like that. It's becoming a little bit complicated, I would imagine, So, I understand that they need to look after the growth. I recall well in your report you're saying that they're not very exposed to China because it's a very small market for them. So it could represent an opportunity also, or at least it doesn't have impact on their current numbers. But the ultimate goal, you think of all this, coming back to the owners, is to do an IPO anytime, or what would be the outcome there? Just to make things as sexy as possible until that stage?
Probably, if I were to guess, probably the goal is to go public. Yes, definitely. When? I don't know. They don't know either. Everything has to be aligned in terms of what they produce as figures, top and bottom line. But bottom line being even more important, and the stock markets have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. So it could also explain a little bit the devaluation process that they went through. Just to, if they go in under the IPO route, so it's a bit more in phase with maybe the reality of the business, and depending on how successful it will be in the next few years, then maybe it'll be more in line. So, talking about the rest of the industry in a certain way, and talking about, let's focus a bit more on the independents. We know that it represents a very kind of a small portion of the big watchmaking cake. Nonetheless, within your top 50 brands, you do have a few players that are, their numbers are not so, they're pretty good. They're pretty impressive. Talking obviously the FP Jour and the BNF and so forth. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
H. Moser and so forth.
H. Moser, around the 36, 37 rank. It's quite impressive what those brands have achieved in the last few years. They managed to scale their business without losing their legacy, their DNA, not compromising what they stand for in terms of values. It remains to be seen of how far or how high you can go up with a brand like Moser. Is Moser a brand capable of going to 300-400 million sales? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I think it will take a lot of time and a lot of money reinvested in the brand. They do a very good job. The only questioning again, you know, you start thinking is looking always at the same thing, but it is important. The secondary market at H. Moser, it's not where it would need to be to reassure their clients and aspirational clients that they are here for the long term. There, they really need to address that issue. François-Paul Journe, skyrocketing. Sorry.
Just
please.
regarding H.
Sorry,
Moser
yeah.
a bit, but at the same time, I mean, they come up with timepieces, sometimes, you know, whether it's a tourbillon, minute repeater, anything like that, at a price point which is much less than it would be in another, with a big name.
True.
So maybe even if the second market is a little bit down, at least your entry into that world of, I mean, very qualitative watchmaking is more of a fair deal, I would say.
It is, and it's one of the strengths of this brand, besides building up that community. Edouard Mélan, the CEO, and his brother Bertrand, who is in charge of sales, they do a very good job. I'm sometimes getting invited again. Next disclaimer, I'm not working for Moser. They are just friends, not just. Edouard has been a long-term and loyal friend since many, many, many years. They do a very good job at entertaining that community.
Yes.
And when you are invited at an Moser event, you feel that it's easygoing. You know, it's not, you know, like that enforced coolness. And I think that's one of the strengths, the accessibility in terms of price. Tourbillon at a very good price. But nevertheless, you know, if you buy at a certain price, even though you're saying that it's a good value for money, yes, certainly. But even though I pay 50,000, I would like to think that I'm not losing 30 or 40% of the value. I'm not saying that it's happening on all the Moser watches and to that extent, but some of the Moser watches but you know, they are growing. They are near the 4,000 watches a year. So it's a change of paradigm. They are self-financed. Yeah. They are profitable. That's the most important thing. They are growing. They still have a lot of potential. I trust that they are taking the good decisions this year. I was promised that I would see extraordinary new products. The contrary would have surprised me, but we'll see. Probably at Watches and Wonders, they have already started.
Because they do have this capacity of coming very often with new products. I mean, they don't just, you know, stay there. Okay, we've had one. Oh, this is a one-hit wonder or whatsoever. I mean, they really. It's a continuous development phase with these guys, and I think the fact that, I mean, their team is rather young. I mean, it's most of the management team and so forth. And I think that maybe they have a different type of energy.
They have a good drive. They have a good drive. They need to. They became a little bit more quiet to.
Compared to some of compared to some of their communication.
But you know, it was.
But they did that at the right time. It helped them stand out, and they were smart. They didn't have big budgets and things like that, and they got, I mean, that's right under the spotlight. Sometimes people not appreciate it, but at least they gave them exposure, and now they can be a little bit more mature, maybe. Maybe.
That's the thing. But of course, you know, you can be pushing and the revolutionary young guy of the bunch, and then all of a sudden people will tell you, you know, now you're a grown up, so you cool down and you stop, you know, running around and making those funny videos with Edouard, but. It's the people who advise them and the management team, they were very clever at repositioning the brand where no one would have expected them, with a fresh young energy, and that's one of the very strong points about Moser.
Yeah, when they took over, I mean, there had been already quite a lot of development made on the technical side, but I mean, people associated H. Moser as being more, I mean, a boring brand, if I say it very bluntly. I mean, this is a bit harsh to say this like that, but in contrast to what they've achieved, meaning taking it from there and making it indeed something cool. And this is quite remarkable without, I mean, the products are not exactly the same. I mean, they've evolved a little bit, but it's not radically different. But nonetheless, they managed to bring in all this coolness around the brand, the products, the way indeed they communicate and so forth. I think so. It's quite, yeah. It's also, you were talking before about those brands that should be, you know, that are kind of benchmark that can be taught in business schools and things like that. I think the H. Moser case is an interesting business case too. Just my little thing.
Indeed. And I'm preparing a book about branding.
Okay.
And Moser will be one of the chapters of that book.
Okay. Well, they deserve it.
Writing it with a young guy called Romain Millet, who is excellent, a lot more smarter than I am. That's not difficult. That's not setting the bar very high. He's very smart, a lot younger, and we are currently writing that book.
Okay.
It takes a lot of time.
Looking forward. All right.
Always new ideas. And yes, indeed, Moser is a very interesting case study. Yeah.
And then you were about to talk about another, I mean, he's the kind of
the godfather of independent watchmakers,
I mean,
Mr. François-Paul Journe.
Yes.
Interesting. It's another interesting case study because
absolutely
2 decades it was loss making. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. Maybe they were making a little bit of money, but they had very, very loyal shareholders, sticking to the project, never putting any pressure on Mr. Journe to change anything.
I think that's kind of difficult.
To put pressure
in?
I
mean, you can try.
Yeah, it would be quite a challenge. Yeah, it would be quite a challenge. No, but Journe is just, it's one of my favorite independents because the watches are so beautiful, the design is so unique, the whole branding is totally coherent. The narrative is very well done since the beginning. And finally, now since a few years, they are overshooting the independent market with new products. They are concentrating on limited edition with the boutiques, which are even more extraordinary products. No, overall, it's just a success story. It remains to be seen what the plans are in the long term. I wish he lives until 120, Mr. Journe. I wish you do. But on average, it doesn't go that long, unfortunately or fortunately. And then it remains to be seen what the next chapter will be, because when you're an eponymous brand, and the name-giving person is not anymore around, then you need, to adapt a little bit the narrative.
But at the same time, I think the products, they have such identity.
Absolutely. And the brand exists.
Exactly. So
since the beginning, they built up a brand. Like at another kudos to De Bethune. Another brand they are not in the top 50. I wish they managed to join the ranks anytime sooner or later. But De Bethune also, that feeling that you have not only a genius watchmaker, but you have a brand. That's very important with the narrative, with the values, etc. So that's Journe is.
But you see, I think with De Bethune, with De Bethune, if you see watches from 15, 20 years ago, it was a little bit more, whereas
definitely.
Indeed since 5-10 years or 5 years, let's say, I mean, there is indeed some coherence, a crazy one, an unusual one, and so forth. But there's, whereas with Journe, I think it was always very straight.
Very aligned.
It was like there's not much deviation
No.
from his initial vision.
No.
And that's where the guy, I think, he's quite a
He
genius.
has, Mr. Journe has a tremendous horological culture,
Yes.
knowledge
Yeah.
about the history of watches, and you see it and you feel it in his products. And he is, unlike some other independents, he's open to what watchmaking is today with the elegant.
For
He's,
instance,
prepared
imagine
to
the
these-
success of this.
Yes,
It's crazy.
crazy. And all those people telling me he's crazy when he launched it, he's crazy. Doing this will ruin his reputation, and this and that and that. But you know, at the end, I look today, the prices on the secondary market are
It's like
skyrocketing, to say the least, because there are also people looking after that, so that the prices go up. But and the sales is just, you know, I have sometimes people of outside the watch industry asking me, Oliver, why can I get my hands on this and that François-Paul Journe watch? I say, well, because there are so few worldwide, and he has such a strong community of buyers. I mean, there are people who dislike the person, but the others, they just love him.
Well, he could have easily increased his production volumes. Not an issue whatsoever, but nonetheless, I mean, keeping it.
More or less.
more.
He does quite a few elegant. But on the mechanical part, he's quite stable. And it's totally, you see where the journey goes. That's why the watch collectors buy into this journey. And it's one of the very few success stories since the rebirth of serious mechanical watchmaking. We could name Frank Müller. We can name Richard Mille.
Yeah, that's interesting. In your report, I mean, Frank Müller is
declining.
Declining, but I mean, still, it's still there. I mean, the volumes are still quite. I mean, the turnover, at least, I mean, it's quite impressive. In the top 20, if I recall.
Yeah, it's always a surprise for people they are 22. It's always a surprise for people. They ask me, but how is it possible that Frank Müller is still at that level of sales? And there are many reasons to it, and the current, let's say, little bit the weakness is that on the branding side they could do a lot more. They could do a lot more. They do a lot of things which are a little bit out of fashion, to say the least.
I don't think they like to spend.
That's one thing probably, but on the other side, when you visit the manufacturer,
it's impressive.
And here, really, I want to make a statement. Again, the disclaimer. No, I'm not making a disclaimer. I was invited. I had visited Frank Müller Watchland about 20 years ago. I was re-invited, I think it was last year, and I visited the whole manufacturer. It's just amazing. Amazing. There are no other words. What those people produce in Geneva in their own premises, in-house. I visited on another day. I visited the dial manufacturer in the Jura, lost in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Very nice place. Very passionate people making on the dials. I visited their atelier where they are making their own leather straps and rubber straps, etc., etc. Extraordinary knowledge. The product deserves a lot of respect. Of course, there are all those stories, you know. Don't want to mix that with the actual situation. No, but it's and creativity. The creativity on the product at Frank Müller, incredible. Too much, too much. When you go at the annual product launches, when you're at the end of the thing, you're like, wow, this was, there are too many colors, too many models, too many sizes, etc. They should focus a lot more. Again, I'm giving advices, and I'm not, I haven't achieved that extraordinary success story that they have achieved, Mr. Sirmakes and his partner, Frank Müller, not my family. But they should focus, and they should put a lot more emphasis on their branding in the large sense of the word, in their narrative, and going a little bit more modern, more 21st century than 20th century.
I've seen they've done, I can't remember if it was last year or a couple of years ago, a bit more, some movies that were a little bit more edgy. And
True.
I said,
True.
wow, a little revolution there.
And then they stopped.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they say once in enough, once every 10 years.
I think if I were them, I would also advise them, to tell that story of that entrepreneur, which Vartan Sirmakes is, but he doesn't like to talk about himself, and but he has kids now. That new generation, hopefully, Sassoon, his brother, sister. They should bring in a fresh energy, and hopefully, but still, they are still there. They are still selling. People always ask me, where do they sell their watches? Well, take a plane, fly to Asia, and you will see the power, the strength of Frank Müller, the brand. It's just incredible. You have monobrand boutiques, for instance, run by their partner in Asia, Sincere, which are just amazing. It gives you a totally different brand perception than the one we have here.
Yeah, for sure. So in your report, I mean, you are going through 50 brands. Obviously, you must have done some research, a bit more of the brands, many more of that, to finish this part of the conversation, because we still have one chapter, is regarding those top 50. Are there special brands that you would like to do some kind of special mention? I was thinking, for instance, Jacob & Co. is still going pretty strong. And they were very proud about it. They commented, did this big PR thing like that, and you see that it meant a lot for them.
At least I have a new good friend. Hello, Mr. Jacob. Thank you, and kudos to you and your team.
And the other one is interesting. I think is Christopher Ward.
Yeah.
That's making it in the top 50 and things like that. Because I remember when they launched this, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, where they put a bit more emphasis on it, I would say. And they have also an interesting model, because they're only selling direct, with a price point that is reasonable.
Yes.
I remember at the time, some watches were starting like, I think, 1,500 Swiss francs or something like that.
Even below.
Even below this. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, Christopher Ward, it came quite as a surprise to some people that they joined the top 50, but they did a huge increase of their sales, which, by the way, as a UK company, it's a Swiss-made brand, but it's a UK company. They have to publish their numbers, and so anyone can look up the numbers. So at least there is no opaque, we are plus whatever percentage, but yes, what's the amount, we can't tell you. No, there it's totally clear and transparent. The sales model of 100% D2C is very interesting, very good, and it's telling a very compelling truth about our business, is that the get-togethers, the stupid, simple get-togethers, where you have passionate people like you and me sitting around the table showing each other the watches, etc., that still works, despite digital, despite the metaverse, which came and went out as quickly as it came. That's very interesting, and Christopher Ward is putting a lot of energy, the people in the team, to travel around and talk to the people and then explaining why and this and that and that. And that's very important. That's what makes it unique, because he could buy for the same price a Tissot or a Frédéric Constant, to take some examples. And now they buy Christopher Ward because they met a guy who told them the story and why they did this and that product, etc. Kudos to them. It's excellent product. Excellent product, very innovative, very at accessible prices, interesting products. The weak point for me in this, that will be another one, another chapter, because it's a success story. The weak point is the narrative. When you go on their website, etc., for me, it's the one point where they need to improve. They need to put up some muscle. It's not coming over as very convincing. That's my perception. But apart from that, it's excellent. And it's the proof that with Frédéric Constant, Raymond Weil, Christopher Ward, etc., all of them in our top 50, that you can achieve to some extent quite a sustainable success in a price range where I would tell you don't even dare to try to launch a micro brand. And they did, and they are successful. So there is a market out there. There are people buying watches at 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 or whatever. There are people out there. You have to convince them with a fresh and compelling narrative about your micro brand. And of course your products have to bring something new to the table.
Of course, yeah.
That is always the difficulty of those micro brands. Very often is that they start, and we could talk about my friend Thomas Bayot, who has also success. He's now rolling out, and I'm coming to that point. At the beginning, they all want to do 100% D2C. And they all make their price calculation based on that, because you don't have to spend margin. You just spend on your marketing activities, but no margin for the middleman. So you can be priced below your direct competitor from an institutional brand. The problem starts when you have saturated your market with direct clients, and then you start looking for the next ones. And the next ones, you need, you can't pick up everyone, because you can't be that same week in Tokyo and Los Angeles, and then it starts to become expensive. The next step is, toc, 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 Mr. Retailer, you just lost ABC institutional brands. I'm a replacement for them. Tag team, bam, boom. But then you have to give him a margin. That's obvious. And then the problem starts, because then you have to recalculate if you still earn enough money to give him that margin to continue your other marketing activities. So that's the tricky point. And that's where Christopher Ward is so interesting, because they kept it to the 100% D2C. They have the whole margin, but they need to invest in the direct to consumer approach, which implies that you are reactive. But with artificial intelligence today, you have so many tools at hand where you can interact with your clients to a certain, and then they want to talk to you.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, final chapter.
Yes.
Okay, because we've been talking about Swiss brands mostly. Okay, but there are other industries out there. And for the first time in your report, you acknowledge that, well, there could be some kind of potential threat in a certain way. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll start with the obvious, because, I mean, we're with the Japanese watchmaking industry.
Yeah.
What does it represent?
It's, first of all, I shall start with this. This report is done for financial investors who want to invest in equity of listed companies for obvious reasons. And we are focused on Swiss-made or Swiss-owned brands and groups. That's the first explanation why Grand Psycho is being mentioned for the first time. It's not in the ranking, it's estimates that we are making. Grand Psycho is a serious player, and the very interesting point is that their history as a global brand is very, very recent. In fact, it was launched in the 60s as the high-end brand of Psycho. Obviously, they have another brand called Credor. That's another story about being coherent in marketing, which in this case is quite questionable. But anyways, so 1960s, they launch that brand. They consider that it's only for the Japanese market. And in 2010, they go to the US and they start opening up on an international level. And they start understanding that you can't do what you do in Japan just one-to-one and do it in the US or anywhere else in the world. So they are successful, but not that much. And then they need to adapt in the way they present products, the way the narrative is done. But the very interesting part about Grand Psycho, besides the products, which are very, very interesting in many ways with high frequency, what they call the high beat, etc. The interesting part is that the brand territory is very unique. It's alluding to nature, to the Japanese nature, and they always come up with very spectacular dials, taking colors, surface treatments, which make their dials very unique and a very strong component of the product offering. That makes that brand so unique. And then finally, COVID, but they decide to come to Europe 2020. They open up a flagship store, Paris. That was a very, very strong statement. Place Vendôme, the place to be in Paris. And they have a flagship store also in New York, and they have London, in Tokyo, Ginza, in Kyoto. I think, yes, Kyoto. So, I think it's Kyoto. So they have a few flagship stores around the world, but they come to Europe only in 2020. And again, that learning curve that a European retailer doesn't necessarily work the same way the Japanese colleague works. So they need to readapt. They are very successful, very, very. Are there threats today? Yes and no. They do consolidated worldwide. We estimated about 50,000 watches and about 210 million Swiss. It's quite something. There would be around, I estimated that they would be around 27 in our ranking.
Quartz, mechanical, everything included?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grand Psycho.
Okay.
So it's an interesting product. Very bold design language for some products. Very bold. For others, to my taste, it could be a little bit more modern and refreshing, but other products are just beautiful. Both the movement architecture, and they were very smart because they learned a lot what the European and American collectors are cherishing, the finishing of the movement with polishing, engaging angles, etc. They had Philippe Dufour, the god of watchmaking. That's more of an irony than a real, but still Philippe Dufour is the one
in
watchmaker.
Japan, he's perceived as a living legend.
He is a living legend.
And he is a living legend.
He is the one who brought back the tradition of craftsmanship to to do those magnificent finishing on movements that now every young Turk is promoting. Recep Recepi, Simon Brett, name them all over the place. Grand Seiko, interesting brand, very innovative in terms of movements. I spoke about the high beat. They managed also to always continue the auto quartz watches, which we in Switzerland gave up very soon. The Swatch Group had that technology, which they tried to launch at Omega and Tissot. We were not successful, to say the least, at least for Omega, because it's not that the product was not good. We didn't manage to explain to the people that it was the best of both worlds. And that's what Grand Seiko does so well, is to tell people, in fact, you have the best of both worlds. So you have the mechanical part, and then you have the quartz part, and that's the best you can have. They won the GPHG a few years ago with that wonderful, now I forgot the name, tourbillon with a force constante. Yes. I was very happy because I was sitting at the dinner then with the watchmaker who had made the movement. It was very interesting. It was a talking piece.
Yes,
very few.
Yeah, because they only did 20 or 10 and 10.
I think so. Yeah.
It took them 10 years to develop.
Very few.
But very interesting piece, that's for sure.
And the competitors are Omega, Breitling, again, Rolex, etc. And it seems that in America and in Europe they are well perceived because they are seen as a trustworthy alternative to the main players that I just named. But
their watches are not particularly cheap.
No, they are not. No.
And when you're talking about some of these watches with those very artistic dials and things like that, some of them they go for, a crazy amount of money. I think I was really impressed. But overall, as a brand, are they gaining momentum? Are they on a positive dynamic?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. They are also gaining momentum because, first of all, they do a very good job. They are on a very, very unique brand territory. Yeah. They are not ashamed to say we're proud because we're Japanese, which is good. They stand apart from the rest of the Swiss watch industry. That's very good. But they are seen and accepted from the Swiss watch industry in a very positive way. That's very surprising. True, yeah. They are at Watches and Wonders. Yeah. They participated in the GPHG
multiple times.
Yeah, and no, that's good. They are part of the watch family. That's good. And yes, they have a very positive momentum, especially currently in the US. But there, any watch CEO is telling you that he's growing double digit, etc., etc. It's just that at the end of the year, when you take the numbers and you add up, say, okay, double digit, but what about the rest of the world? That's we don't restart the discussion. But Grand
It's
Seiko,
double digits after the comma.
Yes. No, but the most of the people making a good work in the US currently, they are very, very successful. It remains to be seen if that positive momentum in the US is here to stay. At some point, and we have already seen the most recent export figures, even though you have to be very careful because there was this buildup of inventory due to those infamous punitive tariffs by Mr. Trump and his administration. So the build-up of inventory, and then you have to refill, but much later, etc., etc. So that's a distortion of what you can read from the statistic. And yes, probably the US will calm down at some point.
But I think with the US, also something that we didn't mention, but I think is interesting, is that as a whole, okay, it's the biggest market for Swiss exports right now, but at the same time, I mean, the US consumer pool is not a very well educated one. I mean, they know, if you ask people about watches, most of them would say Rolex, but they won't be able to tell you other type of brands and things like that. Then you have the savvy people, the guys that are collectors. I'm not talking the ones that are buying into independents, because independents are selling a lot to American collectors.
Absolutely.
But for the other kind of more mainstream but institutional brands that you mentioned, they still lack quite a lot of notoriety over there. I think. I mean, it's Rolex is really. I mean, has taken everything basically. So I think that it still represents opportunities for all these type of brands that we were just mentioning before. If there's a bit more awareness that is made around these people and things like that, and that people say, okay, well, watchmaking doesn't resume itself to Rolex basically.
Yes, that needs time, that needs education, that needs media to play the role as educator of knowledge. And yes, Rolex is over dominant. If there is one market where they over dominate the game, it's certainly the US. I mean, it's more than 40% market share of the luxury business there. It's just unique in any luxury product category worldwide. It's okay. You could come up with the example of the Mont Blanc writing instruments. They're also very dominant, etc. But compared to Rolex, it's not quite comparable in terms of size. So yes, Rolex is very, very dominant. It's. I mean, anyone knows what Rolex is. And the other brands, their challenge is to increase the brand awareness against the over-dominant competitor.
They're complicated, yeah, for sure.
Breitling is very strong since ever, but then Omega is very successful in the US because they have invested massively the last 10 years to open up boutiques. They have a very successful e-commerce for the US, dedicated to the US market, and they have increased their brand awareness tremendously. So it needs time. It's a huge market. You need to invest substantial amounts of money. So yes, Grand Seiko, to come back to Grand Seiko, they are very, very successful in the US, but also in Europe and on their home market in Japan anyways. And then the second example that we brought, and that's not by coincidence, it's our Indian friends, our Indian friends from Titan. And they have ambitions. They are very strong on their home turf, but now they want to go global. They have tried, Titan has tried with a Swiss brand called Favre Lebas. We know how it went, not very well, to say the least. Sorry, to be frank. And that brand was taken over by other Indian people, which is the number one retailer in India, Ethos. They have a Swiss manager, Patrick Hoffmann, and the Swiss team, and they do a good job. It will take time, but Titan on its side, they signaled that they have ambitions.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
They are still. If I have to compare, Grand Seiko is almost an established player. Titan is the new kid on the block.
So I mean, in Titan, they're saying that they were producing like 70,000 mechanical watches per year, but obviously not at the same price point than Grand Seiko. I mean, you can't compare them at all. And in terms of quality, I mean, it's obviously not the same product. But those It's funny to put in perspective those 70,000 watches compared to, I can't remember, 13 million quartz watches that they produce per year.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very,
Sure.
but it shows that, I mean, they know how to handle big quantities, let's put it that way. And I believe, yeah, they could expand in the near future, even though it's going to take time. And even though they're fast learners. What about Chinese brands? Is that an issue? Because we don't really hear about them. I mean, we hear about one that has been quite out in the public, Barons, I'm talking about them, that are being accepted this year at Watches and Wonder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Some people are a little bit shocked by that.
Yeah, including me, yeah.
Okay.
Not by the fact that the Chinese brand is being accepted. I'm shocked by the fact that we refuse Swiss-made watch brands and that we let in a Chinese watch brand. That is, for me, very hard to understand. I think it's a very negative signal. It's not a smart way to federate the people. And they should be careful. They have a big competitor called Dubai Watch Week. Have you ever heard of that? They are growing and they are federating the people together. Watches and Wonders would be well inspired to take a little bit of that philosophy. Sorry.
On the side, quickly, side note about Dubai Watch Week. They actually, in their communication, said that today they're the biggest, they were the world's #1, the biggest world fair, watchmaking fair, because they had like 90 brands, something like that.
Yeah.
And whereas in Watches and Wonder, okay, now you have 60. And something like that. So they're already, you see, starting to tease a little bit on the fact that we're the biggest.
It's good. Competition
well,
is
good.
always
Competition
good.
is good, absolutely.
It's
but
always
it's just
good. They have a good. Okay, they have many positives for them. It's the nice weather. I mean, when you're in Dubai, can just step out, smoke a cigar. It's nice, and then everybody is in a better mood. It's very secure. Okay, I'm about currently that horrible happenings due to the war. But normally Dubai is a very, very safe place. You can walk around with a $1 million watch. No one is going to harm you. That's very positive, and that helps them. And you are outside, etc. And it's easy to meet each other. That's all the positives about the Dubai Watch Week. Watches and Wonders are still very, very important. It's happening,
and it must remain that, you know. It's
yes, but they have to open up faster. They have to accept faster. The place is there. I mean, you know, when I hear people talking, yes, but you know, we limit because of logistical issues. If you have those, I used to work in supply chain for 12 years. You know where to find me. I'll help you to figure out how you can accommodate 2 or 3 times as many brands as you have today. Okay, it's
just going to stack them up.
No, but there are many ways. There is enough space.
There's enough space. I mean, it's huge.
I always say Geneva has probably the best, worldwide, the best exhibition infrastructure. Punto basta.
I mean, 10 minutes away by walk from the airport.
International airport. You have a railway station. Just in walking distance. The airport is in walking distance. You have the highway just underneath, etc. It's a 7 minutes train ride from the city center to the exhibition hall, and then you walk. That's good for your health. You walk a little bit, 5 minutes, and then you're at the premises. It's just extraordinary. It's extraordinarily well organized. Watches and Wonders, very, very well organized. Maybe it should be a little bit smaller. Some booths don't need all that space, I think. And then we could accommodate a lot more people. and open up. They could, we
been
don't
saying
need
this for years and years and years.
We don't need to come back to the whatever 1,000 brands at Basel World, watch brands. But maybe, I don't know, 200 brands would be already better. That's the positive. Time to watches next door.
I mean, you
Excellent.
have 200 brands exhibiting in Geneva at that point, at that moment.
That's why I'm coming up with that figure. There is space there. And then there would be everyone at the same place. And the evening, if people want to have fun and party, they can go downtown. It's very near. It's a village.
It is a village.
Geneva. It's all in almost in walking distance. So yes, they need really to come up. And besides, Dubai Watch Week, it's so very well thought through with the panels, interesting panels, the workshops, the interactions between the people. Excellent. Everything they do, kudos.
Absolutely. So I think we'll talk more about the future of the Chinese watchmaking industry. I propose you in the next episode. I don't know when that will be, but I think there's a subject in itself.
Before Christmas.
Before Christmas, for sure. So I think my clepsydra is empty since quite a long time ago. So I know that we've spent a few minutes, let's put it that way. Yeah, probably went for a world record right now. So congratulations. Bravo to you.
Bravo,
exactly.
Bravo.
And we just never stopped. But I guess we could continue. That's the sad
hours.
part. Yeah, that's the crazy sad part. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this and maybe even learned a few things. And it's always a pleasure to share as much information as possible about something we are passionate about. So thank you and see you real soon. Bye.
Viva watchmaking! Thank you for listening.